I have 2 onions sliced here that I'm gonna soften in some butter. Onions and butter, AKA the best smell on earth. I'll add a good pinch of salt. This will help them get soft and translucent. And I'll cook these for about 7 to 10 minutes. While the onions are cooking, I'll chop up 4 cloves of garlic. Then I'll add it to the pan with my onions. I'll stir this and let it saute for another minute or 2, and then I'm gonna get my spices. The star of the show here is sweet paprika. It's gonna add great sweet peppery flavor and a beautiful burnt orange color. I'm using a lot of it, 2 tablespoons. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of cayenne just for some heat. Not too much. Still wanna be able to taste the dish. It's looking and smelling delicious. I'm stirring around the onions to get them evenly coated in the paprika, and I'm gonna let them toast here, and that's gonna bring out their flavors. Yum. Next, I'm gonna make a roux which will thicken my sauce. And all that is butter and flour. I'll stir this around and cook it for about a minute. That'll help cook out some of that floury flavor. Now I'm gonna add some low sodium chicken stock. And I'm gonna add it gradually, all while stirring, and then that's gonna start to thicken from my roux and create that sauce. It's starting to thicken up and it's already taking on that beautiful burnt orange paprika color. And I'm adding my stock a little at a time to allow it to thicken evenly. I'm gonna add a pinch of sugar that kind of rounds out the sweetness of the paprika and the onions. And next I'll stir in my chicken. These are boneless, skinless chicken thighs that are chopped into bite-sized pieces. They'll cook up quickly, and it'll make this paprikash one that you can eat with a spoon. I like chicken thighs because they're hard to overcook, and they're very moist and rich. And now I'll let it cook for about 15 minutes, stirring occasionally to cook it evenly until the chicken is cooked through and no longer pink. Just a little bit is all I need to make it rich and creamy and perfect. I have some white wine vinegar here. I'm drizzling in just a touch of it. I'm just gonna add another pinch of salt and more pepper. And now this is ready to go.
When I was a kid, I loved manicotti night. So my mom would make this, and my version is a cheesy vegetable manicotti recipe.
Okay, all right.
All right, yeah, I'm adding a little veg to it, you know.
I'll do it, I'm ready.
Yep. All right, so Sunny, I'm gonna have you help me here. The manicotti is already cooked. You just kind of par cook these, not all the way of what the box instruction says, you know, give them a few minutes less since they're gonna go in the oven.
Okay.
And first I'm gonna make the mixture. So I already sauteed some zucchini and squash and onions, and I'm gonna add to that some ricotta cheese. An egg. This helps everything hold together, but it also gives it some richness too. Some Parmesan cheese.
Hey, you could use like frozen cut vegetables, right?
Completely, yeah. Cook them first to get out some of that water.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could just do frozen. And some parsley. Gonna hit it with a little bit of salt.
Lots of parsley.
A little bit of pepper in there. And then this just gets mixed up here. I've got the measuring cup here with the zip top bag in it. Fill it up, then you close it, then you snip it off, and then you fill the shells, okay?
Right.
And while you do that, I'm gonna make our sauce. You just take a can of San Marzano tomatoes. I like those because they're the sweetest, they're the best canned tomatoes you can buy. 28-ounce can. You're gonna put them in the blender, pulse them up. So all you do to this, add some salt to it.
Like a pizza sauce, right? Basically.
Add some pepper to it. Add some fresh basil to it. And it's gonna cook in the oven. And like I said, these tomatoes are such good quality that they don't even really need to cook that much. I put a cup of it down here, and then I'm just gonna put these in our 9x13. So this is great to assemble ahead of time. You can, then just have to pop it in the oven, or you can even wrap this up and freeze it, and then all you have to do is take it out, add cheese to it, and bake it. So now I'm gonna take the sauce, the rest of it, and pour it over the top.
Beautiful color.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
When you don't cook out the sauce, it's
bright and rich that is.
I want to get a gold medal for manicotti filling.
You didn't even need a piping bag or a pastry chip, nothing. You did
And
that.
I'm not even Italian, you know what I'm saying?
All right, more cheese. We've got shredded mozzarella going on top of this.
Oh, yeah.
So 3 cheeses in here, the ricotta, the mozzarella, and the Parmesan. And we're gonna do a little bit more Parmesan because it's comfort food night, so why not, you know?
And I mean, there's veggies all up in there, Katie.
That's
Come on.
exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna pop this in the oven.
Can I mention how fast this is? You could probably do this whole thing in 15 minutes from scratch.
Okay. Mommy would be proud.
I think Mom would be happy.
proud.
Mom, you watching? Did I do okay? Fresh parsley.
I'm not missing any of the meat or anything. This is really yummy. Pasta cooked perfectly. Mommy raised you on this.
So I have browned some breakfast sausage and it's all nice and crumbled. So piece by piece, I'm getting it out of the pot. All right, I'll set the sausage to the side for now and crank up the heat just a bit. And I will add onion, carrots, and celery. Perfect start for a soup. And Paige loves vegetables, so I kept the chunks kind of big. All right, I need to stir the veggies around and let them cook for a few minutes. All righty, the veggies look great. They have some nice color and flavor from that sausage, yum, yum. So the potatoes go in now, and these are just peeled potatoes cut into chunks. You can use russet or like Yukon Gold would be delicious too. I'll stir the potatoes, and then I'm gonna add the corn. This is fire roasted corn from a bag, just frozen. You can also shave kernels off of cobs and just add fresh corn. Either one works. Stir those, and then salt and pepper and some crushed red pepper, which gives the soup / chowder a really nice spice. All right, that mixture is looking good. So now comes the liquid for the chowder, and it's just chicken stock. Low sodium works well. It looks good so far. I'm gonna let this cook for about 10 minutes. In that 10-minute period, the potatoes got so tender, and that's why it's great to cut the potatoes into small chunks. Just makes them cook that much more quickly. All right, this soup has a couple of really small stages. None of them are complicated. I'm gonna thicken the soup a bit and make it creamier by mixing some half and half with flour, and I'll whisk it just to kind of bring it together. And this is kind of what turns the brothy soup into more of a chowder. So this goes into the pot, and the soup is bubbling away, so I'm gonna let it keep cooking for about 5 minutes until everything gets thicker. Wow, this is looking creamy and so lovely. I'm gonna make it creamier by adding, you guessed it, cream. Heavy cream, delicious. All right, I'll stir the cream in, and you actually could just add the sausage and the rest of the ingredients and serve it right away. But I like to puree the soup a little bit so it's even thicker and even creamier. I'm gonna leave some texture, but I want a lot of it really smooth. Okay, I'm gonna check the texture. This is pretty much how I do my regular potato soup. I puree it kind of halfway, maybe a little bit more, but then you still have some chunks of potatoes, pieces of corn, little bits of carrots, but the base is now a lot creamier and a lot more kind of potato-y, if you will. To finish the soup, I'll add some grated sharp cheddar and plenty of sliced green onions, which is so yummy. And then of course the sausage, because this is sausage, potato, and corn chowder. You could also just use bacon and add the bacon back in. There's something about the sausage with the potatoes that just really works as a soup. All right, I'm gonna pack up the soup and I'll deliver it later, but let me show you how Paige is gonna serve it. So first, she'll need a cute bowl. Then it's time for the soup. 1, 2, probably 3 hearty ladles full of delicious, chunky, piping hot soup. Then all it needs is a sprinkle of grated sharp cheddar and a scattering of green onions. And that is a fabulous bowl of chowder, perfect for my chowder-loving daughter. Wow, this soup really is perfect for Paige. It's over the top, full of flavor, and she can just have it whenever she wants. She can have a friend over, she can have her mom over. All right, soups are ready, garnishes are ready, so I'll pack them up and take them to town later.
Yeah, I've got my dough that I let rise twice and then rolled out into cute little 8-inch circles standing by. Now we're doing the exciting part. I'm just getting a whole bunch of broccoli rabe ready. I'm cutting off the tough bottom stems. Look at this. Just go ahead and make it easy on yourself and cut it right there and say thank you for coming. So I'm gonna start to get these blanching. So my water is at a boil. I'm gonna put a couple big handfuls right in there. So I'm gonna blanch those just for a minute, and then I'm gonna plunge them right into ice water. I'm gonna get some sausage browning, nice big pan. A little olive oil. Hello, hot Italian sausage. I'm gonna get this into my pan. All right, start to let that brown up. Look at that, broccoli rabe. Hey, blanchy. Now we shock it. It stops the cooking process, and it also sets the beautiful green color. Got some ricotta, a bunch of parm. Cool, thank you. So I got to get this guy all chopped up. Isn't that beautiful? Broccoli rabe, one of my favorite vegetables. It's gonna be great inside our calzone filling. All right, look at me all chopped up. Hey, broccoli rabe, beautifully blanched. Oh yeah, that is good stuff. Now when I put stuff inside a calzone, I like creamy stuff. I like cheesy stuff, so I'm gonna add a bunch of ricotta, a very milky flavor, and a bunch of salty Parmigiano. All right, so how are we doing on sausage? Ready? Yep. Okay, so I had a bunch of hot Italian sausage that came outside the casing. I just bought it in bulk because I'm making a lot. So I browned it off, we crumbled it up, so it will really just marry with all this stuff beautifully. And here it goes. Oh yeah, look at that. Woo, I smell that spicy stuff. All right, we start to get this all mixed up. Broccoli rabe is one of my favorite vegetables, and who doesn't like a spicy Italian sausage? So, you know, get all those together, bind it together with a little bit of cheese, and yeah, put it in a dough, and that makes me a happy camper. Woo, my broccoli rabe sausage and ricotta filling is looking delicious. Let's give it a little QC, a little quality control. Oh, I know I'm a rock star on this one. That is good stuff. Wow. Spicy sausage, my bitter broccoli rabe, my creamy ricotta, and just that poke of salty parm. Good stuff. I'm gonna put about 3/4 of a cup or a couple big spoonfuls of filling into my dough on sort of the bottom half. Then I'm going to just use some egg wash just around the bottom edge. We don't need too much glue here, otherwise instead of being sticky, we'll be slippery and slidey, and that's not what we're looking for. Then we meet the top half right down at the bottom half. Look at that. Now, just for fun, to make it look cute and pretty, I'm gonna fold these guys over and do a little crimping action. Hi, little cutie. I'm gonna give it a little egg wash on top. I'm gonna give these a little bit of a vent to allow the steam to escape while it's baking, and so it won't have a blowout. It'll just look beautiful. Look at that. Just a couple sesame seeds. I love those. My cutie calzone day is moving along. Look at it. I got all these guys together. Hello, beautifuls. With a ricotta, sausage, and broccoli rabe stuffing. I put them together, I brushed them with a little egg wash, gave them a little sprinky dink of some sesame seeds, and now I'm tossing them into a 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes.
To get started, I add some flour and salt in my food processor. Then for my wet ingredients, I have water, 2 eggs, and some neutral oil. Okay, so typically when you think of soup at a deli, your mind goes to matzo ball soup, which is totally fair because matzo ball soup is awesome. But what's unfair is that Kreplach is always the underdog. And I don't want them to be the underdog anymore because they are delicious. Okay, I'm gonna mix all this together, and with the mixer running, I'll add the wet ingredients. And it comes together just like that. I know it's ready when it's slightly sticky. I'll gather it into a ball. I'll wrap this up and let it sit at room temperature for a few minutes just while I make the filling. I've got a drizzle of olive oil heating in my skillet, and I'm gonna add a chopped onion. And I wanna give this onion a good few minutes to allow that natural sweetness to emerge. Let a pinch of salt. I'll stir this around and just let it hang out while I get my chicken ready. I've got some pulled cooked chicken here, and I'm gonna chop it into little pieces. And this is a mixture of light and dark meat. My chicken is finely chopped. I'll add it right into the skillet with my onions. I'll get some fresh, grassy dill in there and lemon zest to make the flavors come alive. Then a few passes of nutmeg. Just when you thought chicken soup could not get any cozier, nutmeg comes in and does the job. A pinch of salt and pepper, and that's it. I'll set this aside to cool slightly while I prep the veggies for my soup. Okay, I've got a carrot, a parsnip, and celery sauteing in my pot. I'll pour in about 6 cups of chicken stock, homemade or store-bought. I'll add a tablespoon of kosher salt now. It'll likely need a little more salt later, but this is enough to get it going. I'll let this simmer while I form my dumplings. I've got a flour sheet tray and a rolling pin. And my dough is well rested by now. Okay, I'm gonna divide my dough into 12 pieces. To form my dumplings, I'll take a piece of dough and I'm gonna nudge it into a circle, which will help me roll it out more evenly. I'll dust my counter with a little flour and then I'll roll out the dough. This dough circle looks good. It's about 4.5 to 5 inches in diameter. And then I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of my filling to the center. This part is so satisfying to make. I'll pinch the edges together to seal. And I totally just went on autopilot and pleated these like a soup dumpling. Just like that, I'll place these seam side down onto my sheet tray and keep on forming these cute little packages. My Kreplach looks so happy. They just want to spread joy in the world. I've got a little filling left over that I'm gonna dump right into the soup. It'll add more goodness. And now I'll simmer these guys for about 12 minutes until the dough is tender. I'll finish the soup with a little lemon juice for a pop of acidity and some freshly chopped dill. I'll taste it. Oh yeah, pure nostalgia.
So this is a little bit of orecchiette, little ears pasta, which it cooks quickly, which we like, and I actually have it already cooking. I like a quick weeknight pasta where you can make the sauce, and by the time you cook the pasta, the meal is done. It's also pot for pasta, pan, we're done. You're mincing chives.
Yeah, okay.
I cooked some bacon, and this is just cream and sour cream. A little bit of sour cream. Again, that acidity just kind of built into it, and a little bit lighter, a little bit tangier. I mean, kind of like you're making that buttermilk tang that we love in so many recipes. You always have to have, I think, a little pepper. You always have to have that little secret. Oh, you can't have enough chives, I say.
love you, yes.
You buy the chives at the supermarket. I cut up the whole thing and use it. I don't care. If the recipe says a tablespoon, I put a cup.
Yeah, you can never.
I don't want them hanging around. So I'm cooking down this cream, salt, pepper, and the sour cream, and I'm gonna add the secret ingredient, a little Worcestershire sauce, which I just love. If you wanted to take, there's anchovy in Worcestershire, so if you don't want fish, put soy instead. So you see how the sour cream, everything just gets body almost immediately. You know it's gonna coat that pasta. We have some bacon we cooked, and you have that wonderful grease.
You got?
I'd love some lemon zest.
Yeah.
And then a little juice.
Done and done.
Right in here for a little brightness. If you don't have a lemon, you could add a dash of red wine vinegar instead.
Oh, there you go. Alex, you mentioned your daughter Ava, right? She's 11 now?
Oh my God, yes.
Now, if you follow Alex on Instagram like we do, I follow Ava. So Ava is following in your footsteps in the kitchen, right? The apple did not fall far from the tree here. Tell us, what is she into this week cooking?
She's roasting eggplant. She's cooking chicken. And I just say,
on her
stop
own,
it.
right?
Yeah, stop it. cut
So
it out.
after the 9-hour day, have the child cook.
Yeah, that's the answer to the question.
Alex, I'll never forget being we were at Bobby Flay's in the swimming pool, and I said to Ava, "Do you care to grab me an ice cube?" And she went to get it, and I put it in my glass of champagne that I had in the pool. And she said, "You're putting ice in your champagne?"
Such a snob. So I cook the pasta al dente and then I put it in the sauce. And this is the really important part. Undercook it a little bit and just let it hang out in the sauce for a few
if you're
minutes.
making pesto.
Oh yeah, fair enough. For pesto, I like it in the bowl.
Yeah.
And then you just drop that hot pasta in the liquid, toss, and it's over. This, you want to make sure the cream and sour cream and everything are coating, and you need those few minutes of hang
So
time.
good.
You know? The chives, just put whatever you want in here.
Oh, okay, girl. Okay.
Yeah, okay,
Whoa.
girl.
All right.
And then the bacon.
We're related.
Yeah.
Oh,
Put that
there you
bacon
go.
in. Yeah, it's so good. You can cook it ahead. If you have leftover bacon, people say to me, "What is leftover bacon?"
You need this bacon fat too? We talking bacon?
Yeah, let's drizzle some of that in here, definitely. And I add a little acid to that, little lemon juice to the bacon. Then we're adding that nice combination. It's actually making me hungry. This could be breakfast. If we're gonna have breakfast for dinner, we could have this dinner for
I
breakfast.
put an
Perfect.
egg on that.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really good. Would that be proteiny enough?
I think
with
we
the
have
egg?
enough protein, yeah.
You can have fun with this. You could add some chili flakes if you wanted it to be spicy. And then the other thing is then this is just a real belly warmer.
Girl.
Yeah. This is about one serving. Hold on.
So soupy too, Jess.
Yeah, that's for one.
Yep.
Look at that.
Oh, man.
By the way, you don't get any applause when you have an 11-year-old. You know,
No, you don't.
you get crickets. If things are good, it's crickets. Should I just serve it up?
That's that over here, girlfriend.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, is
I
that my
should've-
serving? I'll take it, you know?
Yeah, I should have served Sunny first. It's true. Ladies first.
So excited.
Katie and Sunny.
She
oh
cut a
boy.
bucket of chives for you, so
Yeah.
she might as well.
My favorite question to ask before I serve is fork or spoon?
Or both.
You know what I mean? This is a spoon pasta.
Yeah, I think the answer to fork or spoon is just yes.
Yeah, just eat.
My mother
I
always,
love the tang.
yeah, my mother always twirls the pasta on a spoon, you know, old school, like spaghetti and stuff. My mom needs the old spoon swirl. The other thing I want to say about these weeknight meals is I didn't really do it here, but if you just mix the dish, shut off the heat, and let it sit for a few more minutes, you can stand it.
Yeah.
Something happened.
We're talking about that. It's one of the most underutilized things in the kitchen, turning off the flame and letting that ambient heat do some work. This is delicious. Katie hit the nail on the head, man. That zippy lemon juice at the end, not just the zest, both. It's the double layer of that. Chives on chives on chives. And then the bacon, they still have their integrity of a nice chew and crunch because you put them in right at the last second. Pasta's perfect. This is like your Instagram page coming to life, and I'm loving it, you know?
Thank you.
I truly feel that.
So I've already got a pan going with some olive oil, sliced shallots, and rosemary. The shallots are already starting to turn brown. So I'm going to add some orzo pasta right into the pan. Yum. And some garlic. Scrape it right in. And then I'm gonna stir it around and make sure the orzo pasta is totally coated in this delicious shallot, rosemary, garlic, oil mixture. I think I included everything there. Orzotto is an amazing dish, and it's very much like risotto, which is made with arborio rice. But orzotto is made with pasta, but it follows the same basic procedure. You cook it for a little while with some aromatics, start adding broth, add it gradually, and the pasta will slowly absorb the liquid, and the whole finished product is just creamy and dreamy. It takes less time than risotto takes, so it's kind of a quick solution if you're a big risotto fan. This menu I'm making is gonna have a Mediterranean spin, which I know my sister loves, I know Paige loves, I know Alex loves. We don't know about Stu and Mauricio because they're not here right now.
Yeah.
We'll just let them
Who cares?
We'll let them go get a burger and fries. Okay, so I've been kind of cooking the orzo pasta with the other ingredients, and I'm gonna add half a cup of white wine. Oh my gosh. That was by far the most exciting thing that's happened to me all day. And then I have some simmering broth. It's vegetable broth, but you can use chicken broth, seafood broth, whatever broth floats your boat. That's a very weird phrase. And then I'm gonna turn the heat down. It's really hot, so it already kind of got off to a good start with cooking. Okay, now I'm gonna stir this and cook it slowly for about 5 minutes, and then I'll bring in the creamy cheesiness that I promised. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper, and then a little bit of crushed red pepper flakes. And then I'm gonna turn the heat way down and add the creamy cheesiness. So first things first, cream. Hello. And some, I call supermarket mozzarella. It's not fresh mozzarella, it's like supermarket mozzarella. And then half a container of mascarpone cheese. Ooh. But you could use cream cheese if that's what you have in your fridge. And basically any cheese combination works. And then about 4 ounces of goat cheese, and I'm gonna kind of break it up as it goes in. Honestly, Orzotto is one of those dishes that you can just pull out whatever you have in your fridge that you wanna get rid of. All right, so I also have sun-dried tomatoes, amazing flavor. They're chopped really fine. And kale. So it kind of has, you can tell yourself it's healthy because it has all of that.
It's basically a salad.
Yeah, it's a salad with a little bit of pasta. Okay, so I'm gonna fold, look at that cheese.
my
Holy mackerel.
You weren't kidding about creamy cheesy.
I was not kidding. When I make promises, I keep them. So I'm gonna stir this around and let it continue cooking just for about 3 to 4 minutes. This is gonna be amazing.
All right, I'm gonna start building up some of the base flavor for the red sauce for my enchiladas. I got some tomato paste. Just gonna get a couple of tablespoons in out of my can here. If you end up with tomato paste left over, do what I do. Just put it in a plastic bag and flatten it out and put it in the freezer so the next time you make a soup or a red sauce or your easy, beefy, cheesy enchilada, you can just kind of break off a piece like a brick. Lot simpler, and then you don't waste stuff the whole can. All right, so now I'm gonna stir this into my onions. Remember, I started with just a little bit of olive oil, some onions, and some salt so they could sweat out. It's okay to kind of jack up the heat on that right now. All right, now in this pan right here, remember I got my onions in. I minced up some garlic, put that in there as well with my yellow and my green bell pepper halves. To that, I'm gonna add some ground beef, 1.5 pounds. It's gonna go in because we're making beef enchiladas. You can do chicken, I don't know, you could do turkey if you like. Any kind of enchiladas you wanna make are just fine with me. A little onion powder goes in here. I know I have onions in here, but the powder, it just has like a more deeper, intense flavor. And then I'm gonna put some cumin in to both of my pans, both in the beef side and in my sauce. Ooh, ooh, don't go too far. Sprinkle it around. But you know, what I'm gonna add right now is something that I always have in my pantry, good for Spanish and Latin meals. Is kind of like the bouillon cube or packet of Latin cooking, and that's sazon. Let me tell you, so much stuff is in here. We've got some color going on with the achiote, saffron, there's cilantro in here, just a lot of goodness that's kind of like you just can't get anywhere else, so it's good to put one full packet in. I'm just gonna make this nice and brown, get some color on my ground beef here before I add in some of the beef broth. Of course, if you're doing chicken, you can add chicken broth. You can add veggie broth if you want, but I like to kind of get all the flavors in there. I'm gonna get my little can ready to go for my red sauce of my whole tomatoes. Really quick, I'm getting in my Roma tomatoes. Just went ahead and seeded them, and I'm getting them chopped down to size into the beefy part of my easy, beefy, cheesy enchilada casserole I'm gonna make here. All right, now on my red sauce side here, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a taste before I add my beef stock, but it started pretty much the same as I did the beefy side. Just a little bit of salt. I started with some onions, some garlic, sweated them down. Then I added some tomato paste and cooked it down to it was nice and golden, deep reddish brown. That's just gonna really help with the depth of flavor here. And of course, a whole can of peeled tomatoes with their juices. A little bit of broth over the top at the end here to kind of loosen it up. And this is gonna be perfect. Right down in your 13 by 9, get a nice big old ladle of the sauce. Look at that. Just move it around, make sure it completely covers everything. Then I've got my corn tortillas here. Overlap them a little bit. And then keep on moving down. And now right on top of this layer, I'm gonna go ahead and put some of the beef. See, just like layering up, just like layering up. Right over the top. Now don't use all of the beef, just about half of it. I'm gonna make 2 layers of meat, 3 layers of tortilla, and in between the layers of meat and tortilla, gonna throw on some cheddar cheese and some Monterey Jack cheese, nice and oozy and cheesy. Easy, beefy, cheesy, enchilada casserole. Nice healthy sprinkle of cheddar cheese over the top here for my easy, beefy, cheesy enchilada casserole. Gonna get it right into my oven, 350 degrees for about, I say 30, 35 minutes. Layer upon layer of flavor there.
There's nothing better than some pockets of delicious ricotta cheese in there.
Yes.
So you can buy the fresh stuff. I like buying fresh tortellini. I think these are frozen. If you want to boil it in a little salted water there to perfectly al dente, maybe even above al dente. Also, when you're done with that, please zest that lemon and juice it for me.
No problem, Jeff.
In this pot here, I have your standard mirepoix, but I use the shallot. I don't like super oniony flavors in my soup, so shallot's perfect. And of course, some carrots and celery. But before we did that, sear the skin side of this chicken breast.
Great, nice
2
color,
wings,
right?
3 chicken breasts. And I'll tell you why this is the perfect ratio in a second. But you want to kind of extract all that lovely chicken fat in there. We're going to season these very aggressively, sear it, take it out, reserve the chicken fat, and then saute our mirepoix in there. Okay. Set this aside. Once this gets all nice and kind of caramely, and I like kind of bring it a little far to develop the rich flavors in there. We're gonna deglaze with just a little bit of sherry. Oh. You know, give a little sweetness, a little kind of that winey flavor, right? And once that's, waft it, right? Waft until the alcohol smell leaves.
I love that tip.
Right? It's going, it's going, it's gone. Then we can add our chicken stock. Now, I'm a firm believer in making my own stock at home, but if this is a weeknight, you do not have time to spend the whole day babysitting a stock on your stove. It's fun to do it at home, but if you have, 3 kids chomping at the bit for some homemade chicken tortellini soup, just use really good stock. One of our sisters in arms here at Food Network makes, I believe, the best stock, Miss Rachel Ray.
Oh, I was like, you
I love her stock.
Yes, Rachel Ray's stock is the business.
It's really good. So, because hers has a lot of collagen in there.
Yes.
So you just want to bring this up to a simmer. Then we're gonna add back in our chicken.
Oh, a lot
right?
of
Because we
flavor there.
only par cooked. We didn't, like, as you can see, it's still raw. So we wanna cook this through. But I know a lot of people, me and Geoffrey were talking about it, we'll leave this chicken in there for like 3 days and then string it up. It just demolishes that, sometimes dry but can be succulent meat. So we're gonna pull out the breast right when they're done, about 20 minutes. You're gonna look in there, we're gonna let it cool, and we're gonna hand pull it. And I'm gonna leave these chicken wings in there for as long as possible. Just gonna add a nice velvety broth to us.
I have a
Bring
quick
this up to a simmer.
chicken soup fun fact. GZ,
Yep.
you're gonna love this one.
I can't wait.
When all of these celebrities, they do their concerts and stuff like that.
Yes.
They tell the producers or whoever's bringing them out there, this is what I need in my green room. Guess who always requested chicken soup and rice in his green room?
Frank Sinatra.
That's right, baby.
So once this simmers, we can add in a bay leaf, some fresh thyme, and just let that go, right? We're gonna enrich the broth. And when that's ready, when we've pulled out the chicken, we've hand pulled it, we took out the wing, all that bone stuff got in there. We have, is that not the greatest
Wow.
feeling in the world, that smell? We're gonna add that shredded chicken back in there, still succulent. We're not gonna cook it, we're just gonna warm it up. Any reserved juices on that plate. We are gonna just mix it up. Sonny, you got the fresh lemon juice and the zest?
Yep, right
Add
there
it in
for
there,
you.
brighten it up.
You know, a lot of chefs make a mistake at home of putting the chicken in there and cooking it and cooking it. You don't have to. The chicken's cooked.
Chicken's cooked.
Let it sit and stop
Let
and
it go.
eat.
It's not gonna get any better the
No,
more
it's
you
not.
cook it. That's a fallacy. Right when we drain these, we can start putting a couple of these in the bottom of the bowl. Much to the line of that chicken, don't cook this in the broth, right?
No.
You can, but what if you want leftovers?
Yeah.
Then tomorrow when you reheat it, these things are gonna be slime. They're gonna be mush.
extra starch.
And any pasta with
Yeah.
soup, any noodles.
Because otherwise, you know, the starch expands, so you get this puffy, like...
Exactly. And this way
like
you
a
get a little,
pretzel.
it's still al dente, you got some chew to it, and it's wonderful. Do you know that the tortellini, right, from Bologna, Italy,
Zach, can I have some
it was made to mimic Venus's belly button.
Really?
Yeah. These were made for soup, usually served in broth, so
It just looks so good.
very traditional.
Love tortellini.
I do, too.
Let me give you a scoop. Now watch. See
Jeff,
right
are
at the bottom?
these cheese tortellini, meat tortellini?
These are cheese. I think cheese is the best way to go. Meat's good too. Even fresh seasonal ones with like pumpkin I've done with, or sweet potato tortellini.
If you put any herbs on that or anything like that?
You know what? I am
Parsley?
going to do it to garnish.
What do you
Right
put on?
there. Just hit it with a little fresh parsley at the end.
So nice.
Brighten it up.
So
You
nice.
could serve it with a lemon wedge.
Which I love.
Like that, just to kind of boom. and there you
Oh,
go.
look at that. Now, this is a hearty dish, right? So I have my water boiling, and I have cavatappi, which is a beautifully curly pasta, which I love because the kale and the sausage and all the good stuff is gonna get inside there. So what I have here is a little bit of olive oil, and I put some sausage, Italian sausage. I browned, and I've added some andouille sausage, which is a Calabrian sausage that has chili in it, and it's soft. It is, to me, like extraordinary. It's fantastic. Some garlic. I'm gonna stir that in, turn the heat up, and then I'm gonna add some mushrooms. Not a lot, just a few. I have cremini, chanterelle, some shiitake.
Wow,
I'm just
this is
get
gonna
them.
be
This is
good.
gonna be really good. So I'm not putting a lot of color on them. I just wanna get them in there and get them softened up. To this, I'm gonna add a little white wine. You could add red wine if you so desired, or Lambrusco would go well with this. A sparkling Lambrusco.
Could I add white wine vinegar if I wanted to avoid the alcohol?
That's a good question. Of course you could. Yeah. And now we're just gonna let that simmer. And what that's gonna do is continue to cook the mushrooms a bit. And to this, we're gonna add our kale. Just gonna drop it on top.
Kale's full of calcium.
Yes.
It's got good iron in there. It's so healthy. It's one of the reasons that I love it so much. I love the way it tastes, but kale is really good for you. How much do you cook that kale?
It's done.
Just
I mean,
wilt
yeah,
it down.
You wanna wilt it. It does have like a little tooth feel to it, but this pasta can handle the sausage and the kale. This is a tough pasta,
Yeah.
cavatappi. Okay, so we have our cavatappi here. Now we have a little water, a little cooking liquid. I'm adding a touch of this because there's some starch in it. It's gonna thicken up a bit, but I think it's in really good shape. Now I'm putting this in. It's al dente, so it's 85% cooked. It's gonna end up cooking a little bit more in this.
I really like going straight from the pot into the sauce because you still have a little water on there. So you're putting some butter in there?
I'm gonna put a touch of butter in, but not yet. I just wanna make sure we get the liquid reduced to that liquid is just coming down, and this is what we do with every pasta. We're just gonna look for it, and I can feel that the pasta is perfectly cooked, and now I know that that pasta has all of the sauce inside of it. Then we're gonna put a touch of butter and a little bit of Parmesan cheese and shut the heat off. You wanna put the cheese just a little bit at a time. A lot of people put too much cheese in too early, and you get those cheese curdy clumps,
Yeah.
So just go like that. You can stir it if you want like that.
It's really one of your signatures, Geoffrey, is like perfectly buffed nails. You like a little dot of butter to make everything glossy.
Just a bit. I mean, if you go in northern Italy, they use a lot of butter. In southern Italy, they use less. But I think a touch is necessary. And there's a lot of chefs in the city. You go to their restaurant, you're like, oh, he's from the north, he's from the south. You can tell they're cooking right away. We're done. Shall we?
Plate it up.
Okay.
It looks so good.
Who wants this? Okay.
I love that you give me a spoon.
You need a spoon with this dish.
I love that. All right, here goes. The sausage has the meat flavor, but the mushroom gives the meat texture, so it's almost deceptive. And the mushroom is silky. The kale is sort of the connector between all the parts of this dish. Everything belongs, and it's just deeply delicious. I will fight someone for a dish like that. I will
Thank
fight.
you,
There'll be a
Alex.
fight.
To get started on the dough, I'm gonna get 4 cups of all-purpose flour and then a tablespoon of sugar. Well, just to add a hint of sweetness, I'm using 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast. I love using instant yeast because I don't need to proof it. And then 1 1/2 teaspoons of kosher salt. I'll whisk this up to combine. Easy peasy. I'll grab my wet ingredients. I've got 1.5 cups of water and 1/4 cup of corn oil, which helps the crust get crisp, and it also adds this delightful, subtle corn chip flavor. I'll pour this in, and then I'll get it on my mixer and just mix until it comes together. I'm gonna knead this now for 7 to 10 minutes until it's smooth and still slightly sticky. Okay, this looks beautiful. It smells yeasty. Then I'll grab a clean bowl. I'll add a little bit of oil so that it doesn't stick. Okay, I'll gather it into a ball, and I'm gonna place it seam side up first into my bowl, and then turn it back over so that it's completely covered in the oil. I don't want it to dry out. I'll cover it with a towel and then let this rise at room temp for 1 to 2 hours until it's doubled in size. I'm gonna divide it into my 2 pizza pans now, one for me and one for Nick. And these are coated in loads of butter, which adds delicious buttery flavor. I'll divide this into 2 even pieces, and I'm gonna stretch them into balls. This will help me pat it out evenly. And I'm gonna let these rest for a little bit longer, and that's gonna make it easier for me to pat it out in the pans. A tiny nap while I prep my toppings. My toppings are prepped and my dough is all rested, and now I'm ready to assemble. I'm gonna start by pressing the dough out. I'll rotate my cake pan as I go to make sure that it's pressed evenly all over the bottom. And then I'm gonna pinch the sides so that the dough comes all the way up. The butter that's lining the cake pan kind of helps the sides of the dough stay up. My dough is patted out. First comes the cheese, which is unique to Chicago-style pizza. And that's because it acts as a barrier so that the sauce doesn't make the pizza soggy. And this is sliced mozzarella cheese. And next comes the sausage. I'm using pork sausage that I rolled into balls. So I'm distributing it evenly all over the cheese, and then I'm pressing it out. Then I'll top with San Marzano tomatoes that I've salted and drained. When we have deep dish pizza, it is a special event. It's so big that we can really only handle it like once a month. I carry the deep dish pizza excitement in the family, but Nick and Bernie hop along for the ride. I'll distribute these all over the sausage, all the way to the edge. Next, the quintessential pizza vegetable, green peppers, and some chopped onions for little bits of sweetness. I'll sprinkle with a snowstorm of pecorino. Oh, it smells so good. And a little pinch of oregano. And that is a beautiful pizza. I'm gonna assemble the second one, and then it'll be ready for the oven. These are prettier than the Chicago skyline. I'm gonna stick them in the oven at 500 degrees for 30 to 40 minutes until the crust is golden and the cheese is bubbling around the edges. It smells like a pizza parlor in here. Yes, they look perfect. I love seeing that some of the cheese has bubbled up and gotten browned. Okay. I'm gonna finish with a pinch of crushed red pepper because I need a little heat. Talk about deeply delicious. Do you want a big slice or a really big slice?
Give me the biggest slice you have ever
Okay.
sliced. This is the best Chicago pizza I've probably ever had.
Lad and the kids have been up since 4 a.m. shipping cattle. It's long, dirty work, so as a treat, I'm rustling up a rib-sticking lunch of the kids' favorite dishes. For my little rancher Bryce, it's gotta be beef, so Salisbury steak in a tasty onion gravy seems like just the ticket. I just mixed together 1.5 pounds of ground beef, then added 1/2 cup of seasoned breadcrumbs to bind it all together. Then I added 2 teaspoons of dry mustard, a crumbled beef bouillon cube, 4 dashes of Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon of ketchup, and some salt and pepper. After that, I kneaded the mixture together, formed some oval patties. I've got some oil and butter in a hot pan, and I'll just get the patties going. Now, because the patties begin with ground beef, I want to make sure they're cooked all the way through. So I'm going to cook them for about 3 to 5 minutes on the first side. Now, after the patties are fried, I'll take them out of the pan, and then I'll make a really yummy sauce. And that's what makes Salisbury steak so yummy. The patties are done. I took them out of the pan, and then I drained off all the grease, didn't clean the pan, and I threw in a sliced onion, and I've been cooking that. It's nice and golden brown, so I'm gonna move into the sauce. I'll just pour 2 cups of beef broth right into the pan with the onions. You know, sometimes I call this gravy, but it's really not a gravy in the traditional sense of the word. It's more of a sauce, and the flavor of the patties really comes through. And then several dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Just eyeball it. And then for a little tang and sweetness, a tablespoon of ketchup. I'd say a heaping tablespoon. And then this is a strictly optional ingredient, but I like to add a little bit of seasoning and browning sauce into the pan. Ooh, that's gonna be nice and dark. It really doesn't do too much except it deepens the color, deepens the flavor a little bit. If you don't use it, it'll still be totally delicious. I'm gonna let that go a little bit. And to thicken it up a little, I'm going to mix some cornstarch with a little beef broth. Just enough to turn it into a paste. My mother-in-law always makes fun of me because I stir things with the measuring spoons I use, but I don't like to do dishes, so I'm in the habit of dirtying as few things as possible. All right, now I'm just gonna add a couple of tablespoons of the cornstarch mixture to the sauce. And then I'll let it cook for just a minute and see what it looks like. The cornstarch thickens the sauce, but it also makes it nice and glossy and really beautiful. If it needs more thickening, I can always add more. If the sauce gets too thick, you can splash in a little beef broth. It's real easy, you can't mess it up. Okay, this looks perfect. It's getting nice and thick. So I'm just gonna add a little salt and pepper. And it looks just so good, so pretty. You can give it a taste, adjust the seasonings as you want, but it looks just right. So now I'll just stick the patties right back into the pan, nudge them around into the sauce, and then this sauce is so wonderful, I want to spoon it over the tops of the patties. You know, the Salisbury steak, I remember, had really finely diced onions in the gravy, and if you didn't like onions, you were kind of out of luck. But I like to slice them big, and that way if a kid doesn't necessarily like onions, they can easily pick them off. All right, Salisbury steak is done. I'm just gonna let them simmer in the pan.
4 tablespoons of butter. Melting it nice. Got my wooden spoon here. And we are going to add these onions. Okay, about 1 pound of onions in there, and this will cook down tremendously. To this, we're gonna add some salt, a little kosher salt, not too much, just to kind of lightly help start weeping it all out. But again, salt is the enemy of caramelization because it draws out all that moisture. And we wanna really focus on developing the sugars in these onions. And to help kind of expedite that process, give it a little extra, just a little, couple pinches of sugar with the onions.
Controversial.
All right. All right, next, we let this go for about 45 minutes. Could take longer, could take less. When you are caramelizing your onions, you do not want to disturb it too much, but if you open the pot and you see a lot of the tasty bits, the fond sticking to the bottom of the pan. Keep a little water, give it a little splash of water, and with your wooden spoon so we can get some. And people neglect that kind of what I like to call side fond or wall fond that creeps up the side of the pot. That's all flavor too. Don't neglect that. That's what we're looking for. Like that's the color.
Don't. You gotta let it go. People are they get anxious.
They get antsy.
Would you put that broth in there?
It's over.
Yeah.
There's zero more caramelization.
Yeah.
Once you start like deglazing too much through the process, it really does kind of slow down the process as well. And we want to embody the spirit of this soup, which is flavor and technique and a little bit of sherry.
Do it.
Help deglaze it towards the end, right? And you scrape up all that stuff on the bottom. Turn up this a little bit. Now we can start adding, we got some warm stock here, and for some herbs, we got a bay leaf and a bundle or a sachet of fresh thyme.
It's a bouquet garni.
A bouquet garni.
Voilà, c'est ça.
A sachet is in cheesecloth usually, so
Correct,
you are
Amanda.
correct that we get a little bit, but it's easier to pick out. It's not just for looking pretty. It's for function too.
Just like you, Jeff.
Very nice. Nobody's like, that guy's pretty. Nobody said that about me.
Jokes.
Even with the neckerchief? So again, we want to kind of cook out that alcohol, let this intensify, let all those
Smell it.
onions soak up that sherry. Next, some warm beef stock. Look at that. Boom.
Same thing.
Right? I should have poured it from the side. Like,
Yeah,
I
like
was
the
getting
water-
some ice water at the saloon. So we're gonna let this come up to a simmer. Look how simple this is, right?
Simple.
It's all time and technique and cutting the onions right, just putting enough of everything, not too much of everything in there. And what we're left with after about another 30, 40 minutes is the base of a great French onion soup. What we wanna do is
gorgeous.
fish out,
Le bouquet garni.
into the le bowl. All right, this is ready to go. Katie, I will bring the horse to the water, if you will.
Okay.
And our toasts are a little done, a little
Toasted.
crostini there. I like to give a little kind of centrifugal stir here so I can scoop up and get an even ratio of broth to onion. I think the onions are the true star of this, but man, we want to structurally build this, so you might need a little more in there. These are big old crocks, but you need the handle on here.
Yeah.
You can use a ramekin at home. You can use like an oven-safe bowl. Or I'm sure you can find these online.
It's kind of like a
very-
Moscow mule. You need the vessel.
You need the vessel,
Yeah,
right?
just to
One
feel
of those
like you're
things
doing
that
it.
like
Yeah.
you find on sale, and when you find it, buy it.
Yep.
Even if you're not planning on making the French onion soup right away, just buy it.
There's also a certain.
I also put like cheese sauces in there. Like
Yeah.
I do nacho sauce, like individual nacho sauce. You
Oh,
can
that's a good
reuse
idea.
those French
I think
onion
there's a
bowls.
look to French onion soup that's almost as important as the actual soup.
Yeah.
It's got to look like he's going to do it. I know what he's going to do.
Oh, you know. I mean,
You got to
smell of
complete
the
it. You
sherry.
can't
Yeah,
like
the
half.
mess on the edge.
Yeah, you can't do it half baked.
Hey, now, we're going to full bake
Oh,
these.
yeah, there we go.
Throw
Look at
a
this.
couple croutons
Really
on the
important
top,
right here.
Do it.
Right? Without submerging like that. That guy went for a dip. I'm going to change him out. I did not. He just ate. You got to wait an hour.
Hey, I don't
Boom.
blame him. He wanted to get in there in that soup.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff.
I got to do 2 sheets.
Oh,
to.
it's
You
got
have
to
to.
have
I
a
gotta do
thick
two.
layer of cheese
You
on
need
there.
it. Right on there.
It's a must.
So
What kind of cheese?
Anybody want to guess?
Gruyere.
Gruyere.
Of course. You could substitute nothing. Gruyere is available everywhere, right? The deli sliced or the sheets of it that come pre-shingled, if you will. Totally worth it because it's going to make your life easier and an even melt, which, let's check on these, huh?
Where do you put it? What kind of oven? Why?
So we are going to put it on a sheet pan.
Yeah.
As many bowls as you need at a time. Don't just loosey-goosey this to the oven, okay? You want to keep it on a sheet. I'm going to need another rag. Give me that, man. I thought I was going to be all swollen showing off for you guys, but this is a two-handed job. You'll see why. Oh, me, get, oh.
Bon Dieu.
That is it. That's the promise.
Yeah.
Look at that. I'm just going to.
Wow.
Look at that. Look at that. Maybe, I don't want to, man, there's no more room. I have all the pots going. Thank you very much, Katie. But look at this. This is what we wanted.
Mon Dieu. That smell.
That's Italian. No, kidding.
That's amore.
That's amore.
This is a soup that makes you want to,
Smile.
well, yeah, and pull out a fork too. You know what I mean?
Yes, you got to get in there. And
Yeah.
Oh,
Again,
you guys
Cote de Rhone, red wine, Burgundy, must
yeah.
have.
done, right?
I
All
like that
day.
you're our sommelier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, how I
Let
got
us
Cote de
know.
Rhone with this? I like to try the broth
Simple.
first.
I mean,
Yeah, I like exactly what I did. I tried to get the cheese, the bread, the broth.
I feel like
you know.
I'm at Cafe Fleur, sitting there in Saint Germain, watching the world go by.
To start, I'm slicing up some leeks and then swish the leeks around, breaking the rings up with my fingers so that the sand and dirt can fall to the bottom. Okay, I'll get my veggies going. So in my brazier here, I'll melt 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I'll get in my carrots and celery and then lift out the leeks. I don't want to strain them and pour the dirty water back over them. Shake off any excess moisture and then add them to the pan. A couple of pinches of salt will help the veggies soften, and I'll cook these down. I love this. These are softened. I'll toss in a couple of cloves of chopped garlic. I'm gonna make my sauce directly in the brazier by building a roux with a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. That's gonna thicken up my chicken stock and get that classic condensed soup texture. I'll cook the flour for about a minute just to get rid of the floury flavor. Typically with a hot dish, you're opening up a can, but it tastes really good when you make it from scratch. A bit of fresh thyme contributes some cozy herbiness. I'll grate in some nutmeg. All right, now for my liquids for the soup, I'll first add the white wine because you want all that alcohol to cook off, and it'll leave behind just a bright acidic flavor that balances out all of these other cozy flavors. I'll gradually add 3 cups of low sodium chicken stock and allow the roux to thicken it. And now you gotta have cream in condensed cream soup, so 1 cup of heavy cream will give this the richness that it deserves. Oh, it's all coming together. This is gonna be so good. I'll season with kosher salt and black pepper. I like a lot of black pepper. A tiny bit of lemon zest and lemon juice will perk this up. I always add this right to the end of my chicken soup. And some parsley and dill for freshness and grassiness. Oh yeah, look at that deliciousness. Next, the most popular part of a chicken noodle casserole, the noodles. I'm using egg noodles, and I've cooked these until they're shy of al dente because they will continue to soften in the oven. Chicken soup, mostly noodles. I'm here for this. And for the chicken, I'm just using a chopped rotisserie chicken. Rotisserie chicken has so much flavor in it already. That is a full casserole. Some peas. They're frozen, but they'll thaw once they hit this hot mixture. I'll fold this all together. Okay, at this point, it's really important to check for seasoning and also taste test. It's looking too good. I have to make sure that there's enough salt in it. Possibly one of the most comforting bites in the universe. But it's just gonna get better now because all good hot dishes have a crunchy topping. I'm gonna get crackers and drizzle them with butter, which will help them get brown and crisp in the oven. Ta-da! I'll spread these evenly over the top. These are the best crackers dunked into chicken soup. That's why I'm going with the buttery crackers. So good. I'll bake this now at 375 degrees for about 25 minutes until the top is golden and the edges are bubbly. I feel like an impatient kid waiting for this. It's Hotdish o'clock. Oh yeah. That looks so good. Those buttery crackers smell heavenly. I'll finish with fresh parsley and dill.
A tortellini puttanesca, and it's one of those pasta dishes that is made in one pan. You don't have to cook the pasta separately and add it. You are going to fall in love with this recipe. So I have olive oil in a 10-inch skillet, and I'm adding garlic and chopped Kalamata olives, some capers, and this is a very weird ingredient, a tablespoon of, who wants to guess what this is?
Tomato paste.
Anchovy paste. If you can't find anchovy paste, though, you can just buy a tin of anchovies and chop up 4. That's basically what I just added. Cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes cut in half, and then crushed red pepper flakes for the win. Yes, Mauricio is so excited. Pasta puttanesca is truly one of my favorite Italian pasta dishes. It's just so flavorful, so easy. It's basically like a pantry meal. So I'm gonna cook this mixture for just a couple of minutes. So for the liquid, I'm gonna add about 1/2 cup of white wine. It only takes a splash. And then about 1.5 cups of low sodium broth. Nothing fancy. Okay, so now to the liquid, you add the tortellini. So this is just regular cheese tortellini. And I'm adding it right into the pan with the broth and the wine. I'll break it up a little bit. Now I just have to stir this and cook for exactly 5 minutes. This is going to be so good. Woo! Talk about a steam facial. Look at this, honestly, look. That sauce has basically cooked down. The pasta has absorbed it. Everything is just basically one with one another. So I'm gonna turn the heat way down and I'm gonna grab some spinach. I love this because it just makes everything look prettier. And I'm just gonna stir it around for 1 minute until the spinach wilts. Look at that, isn't that yummy and rustic and just beautiful? Now we just need to add some shredded Parmesan. And that is a 1 skillet pasta that I am totally excited about. Here I go. Should I eat it?
Yes. And give some to me. What's your thoughts?
Baby. I'm in love. You just start with
I
some hot
respect that.
cream. I'm not gonna make a roux or do anything, just cream with a little finely grated pecorino romano. A tiny dash of Worcestershire and an even smaller dash of hot sauce. You don't even know, no, you don't even know they're there. Literally, as far as I'm concerned, whisking a little grated cheese, super salty, into cream, your sauce is thick enough. I'm over the roux. I'm through with the roux, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're literally just making our filling. So 1 egg, lightly whisk with a pinch of salt right into some ricotta. If your ricotta is kind of wet, you can drain it, right, of any excess liquid. We're literally just making our filling, and it's okay to mix the egg in, obviously, because we're baking it. Salt, pepper, 1 egg, ricotta, and again, just grated cheese.
Any kind of cheese.
I like to use pecorino romano here.
Okay. Yeah.
Or
the
Parmigiano
flavor.
Reggiano, anything with that nice salt factor.
So far, this is a very straightforward filling.
Yes.
You're going straight down the middle here, right?
Lemon zest, and I grated deeper on the lemon to get a little bit of that bitter pith underneath,
Ooh.
which can give it another flavor, which I love.
Wow.
And fresh tarragon.
There you go.
There you go.
And the lemon juice. In with the ricotta, tarragon, and that cheese. And this is really, and it's nice and thick. You've got that egg in there, making sure it's like a little insurance policy that it holds together. And you just want to mix this nice and easy. Now I've got some fresh sauteed spinach here, and I'm going to mix that in. I'm saving a little bit of the sauteed and drained spinach to top when we're finished.
Do you season the spinach? You put salt on it?
Saute it in a little bit of olive oil, salt, pepper.
That's it.
So it's its own animal when it goes in there, All right, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground allspice.
Ooh, that's a lovely touch.
A little bit like when you put that tiny dash of nutmeg in cream spinach,
Yes.
right? The warm spice just wakes it up a little bit. And then we just literally fill and go.
Alex, can you make these ahead of time and freeze them?
You can totally make them ahead and freeze them, but there's a lot of dairy in here, right? There's
Oh, you
cheese,
gotta
the
be careful.
ricotta.
Yeah.
So you want to really wrap them tightly because these will take on any other aromas of anything around them in the freezer.
So could you lay them on a flat in a sheet pan and wrap it up really, really, because this is great to like,
You could freeze them right like this, rolled
right
up.
in there.
great, just shove it in the oven, right?
Oh,
So you just roll it over, and then, it's almost like, I always say it's like you're an eagle and you're landing on a branch. On a cliff, right? And you just give it you kind of liked it, come on. And you just squeeze and roll it over, and you let it sit on its seam so the weight of it seals it shut, and you're done.
So how far did you blanch those? So everybody at home is saying, well, are they fully cooked or are they half cooked?
This is fresh pasta, so I only cooked it for 2-3 minutes.
But it still has a bite to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's not fully cooked.
important,
It's got
right?
a little al
Because-
dente bite. I
Okay.
totally agree. And then to assemble this, right, once you make this cheese sauce and you just let it cool, it thickens more as it cools. So we would just put a little on the bottom here, layer them all up, roll them all up, and then here's a finished one. We just put the sauce on over top, right?
That's all right.
Reminder, the cheese, right? That
And a cut.
cream. Can you just imagine this baking and bubbling away in the oven? I mean,
I'm
stop
imagining
it.
there's one in there now.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think I need to stretch my imagination.
I need a
that far.
bite of that right away.
So I'm gonna put this in the oven and bake it for about 15 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees, right?
Man, tree fitty.
Oh, yeah.
I get that door for you. You got it? Okay.
Let me see.
Oh, look at this gorgeousness.
Oh, my man of God.
Yeah, so simple. And then just that little bit of spinach I reserved for the top is just nice. It's kind of like maybe,
Coloratura, you know?
yeah, a little reminder of what's inside, a little bit of freshness, because I don't really want to add any more flavors here. I've got tarragon, I've got spinach, I've got lemon, I've got enough bold flavors. And then, of course, GZ, because you're here, some pecorino.
So
We're
lucky.
gonna
Why
go
we
with
get
the
along.
great.
Oh, look at that.
It is a rainy, dark, cold day in May. I can't believe this weather. Can you, Todd?
No, ma'am.
Now, I've got some butter and olive oil in the skillet. Very compelling footage there. And I'm gonna get some chicken going. I need to get some salt. And I'm gonna season both sides of these little thin chicken cutlets. And I am making spinach artichoke chicken. So one thing you should know about me, if we ever start to get serious, is that I love spinach artichoke dip. It is a weakness of mine. It is all I want in life. It's super quick. You just make it in one pan and you can serve it with bread or salad or pasta or rice. Anything you want to serve on the side is fine. So I'm gonna put the chicken in. They cook really fast. So if you're into really fast cooking, which we are these days, aren't we, gang?
Oh, yeah.
When we decide we're hungry, we want to eat 17 seconds later. So we can't have these great big chicken breasts that take 17 minutes to cook. No, siree. So I'm gonna cook this chicken on both sides until it's done. And in the meantime, I'm gonna go find my bench scraper, the Parmesan cheese, and other things I forgot to lay out this morning. See you back here in a sec. Good?
Good.
Okay. The chicken is almost completely done. So I took the chicken out of the pan, and here it is. And this is my absolute favorite way to cook a quick dinner. You make some kind of protein in the skillet with butter and oil, and then you use what's left in the pan to make a luscious sauce. So that starts with some red onion. Had to get my bench scraper.
Scrumptious.
It was out in the pasture. Lad was using it to cut pipe. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't think it could cut a pipe. You're right, Todd. Oh, and then I'm gonna stir the onion and garlic around in the skillet. So, of course, part of spinach artichoke dip are the artichokes. And I'm just using artichokes in a jar. They're already chopped up. And you just wanna quickly saute the artichokes in the onion and garlic. So, get ready to have some fun. I'm gonna add a tiny splash, teeny tiny splash of white wine. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Tiny is a relative term. What's tiny to some is not tiny to others.
What kind of white wine is it?
Let's see.
Oh, it is.
Wait, I don't have my.
Grigio.
Peanut Grigo.
What is it, Todd?
Peanut Grigio.
I'm gonna add a splash of peanut grigio. That's okay, Todd. You really don't need to know how to pronounce wine at this stage in your life. And it doesn't give the whole dish a really strong wine flavor. And if you don't want to use wine, you can just use a little bit of chicken broth or veggie broth, anything goes. Now, of course, spinach artichoke dip is a creamy, luscious masterpiece. And I'm pouring in about 3/4 cup of cream. It looks fantastic, and it's got kind of the flavor of the chicken that I cooked earlier. And because the skillet was so hot, this has thickened up pretty quickly. So now, I'm gonna add some Parmesan cheese. No, I like to flick the cheese. I like to Also, this is a trick. It's called the flick trick.
Or you just dump it upside down. You're just getting cheese on the counter. So.
That's okay, you'll clean it up for me. Okay, so look, Alex, the cheese melted almost instantly. So, don't look.
No, Mom.
Mom.
You guys,
It's gonna ruin it.
I'm tired of you hating on pimentos.
It's gonna ruin
Then
it.
stop putting them in the food.
Okay, that's it. So we have some baby spinach leaves. It is a lot, but spinach shrinks. And I'm gonna squeeze in some lemon juice. So here we go. The chicken goes in, and you just kind of nestle it in there. And the great thing is you can scale this up if you have company over. It kind of looks elegant in the pan. Alex, you have to come get another close-up of this with the basil. I'm just tearing basil and letting it fall in. I'm so excited about this. Okay, come in here, Alex, and you can see it getting served. Oh. Wow. Look.
The sausage trucker.
Mmm.
Now
And
some
then
bread.
a little bit of bread, a little bit of extra basil torn over. Okay.
All right.
Okay, go.
It's great. The white wine, the artichokes, the parmesan, everything but the pimentos. I'm kidding.
I think it's
really
great. The butter, olive oil, onion, garlic, cream, white wine, parmesan, artichokes, spinach, chicken. It's all really great. It all works together.
I'm gonna start by melting 4 tablespoons of butter into my pot here. I'll add in 2 pounds of ground beef. I'll season it with a teaspoon of kosher salt, and I'll cook it over medium-high, breaking it up with my spoon until it's browned. While the beef finishes up browning, I'll chop up my veggies. I've got a red bell pepper. If you don't like red bell pepper, you could do carrots, onions, celery, anything. Just get the veggies in because this is about to get covered in cheese fries, so you gotta have something for balance. I've also got a few stalks of scallions, which will add nice freshness. Okay, I'll toss these in and let them get soft. I'm gonna reserve a few of the scallion greens to get sprinkled on at the end. These veggies are soft. I'm gonna add some corn for little bites of sweetness, and fresh or frozen would both work. And if it's frozen, it thaws pretty much immediately when it hits this dish. I'll stir this right in. I'm gonna season this with 2 teaspoons of paprika, which will add a little smoky heat, and some black pepper. These are some good smells. Okay, this is looking and smelling good. I'm gonna add 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour now. I'll stir this around and let the flour flavor cook off for a minute or 2. And the combination of the flour and the butter that I added at the beginning creates a roux, and that's gonna thicken up my chicken stock to create the creamy sauce that binds this hot dish together. I'm gonna add 2.5 cups of low sodium chicken stock gradually as I stir so that the sauce can be extra smooth. And you can use homemade or store-bought stock here. This is looking saucy. I'll stir in 1/2 cup of heavy cream, and then a tablespoon of Dijon mustard will add the perfect hit of punchiness. This just got real. I'll sprinkle in some fresh parsley, dill, and thyme to really give this hot dish some herbiness. Oh yeah, it's bubbly and thick. I'm almost ready for my fries. Before I top, I want to taste to make sure that all the seasonings are where I want them to be. I don't know how it could even get better. Oh wait, yes I do. By covering it in fries. Curly fry texture is the best texture. That is the hill I would die on. I would eat curly fries over other shapes of fries any day. Look at this mountain of fries. And a lot of them are gonna overlap. So then you get all these different textures. There are the fries on the bottom that soak up the hot dish mixture, and then the ones on top that get crispy. I'm very excited. Next I'm gonna top it with cheese, And Swiss cheese goes beautifully with all of these brighter flavors. I love it. But any melty cheese will do. I'm just piling it on. I'm not holding back. That's it. I'm gonna stick this in the oven at 400 degrees for about 40 minutes until the fries are crispy and the cheese is melty. Look at those crispy, curly fries. I can't wait to dig into this. I'm gonna finish it with my reserve scallions. Oh, I have to taste it.
So I've got 2 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes peeled, and I've got these huge leeks. I need about 4 cups of diced leeks. Okay, onto a roasting pan. Potatoes and the leeks. Okay, olive oil. Can't roast without olive oil. Good olive oil. I use California olive oil. Okay, lots of salt and pepper. Make sure it has great flavor. I'm going to roast this at 400 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes, just until the potatoes are really nice and tender. And then I'm going to add some arugula. After it's roasted for 40 to 45 minutes, I'm going to add about 3 cups of arugula. It's got a really nice peppery flavor. I'm going to put it back in the oven for 5 minutes until the arugula just wilts, and it just adds that extra depth of flavor that I'm looking for. So what I've done is I've roasted the potatoes and the leeks, bring out the flavor in them, just thrown in some arugula at the last minute, just enough to wilt it. Now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of white wine, about 1/2 cup, to the pan, just to scrape off all those brown bits that give a sauce so much flavor, and I'm going to make sure it gives the soup lots of flavor. And it gets absorbed in the potato, and it's going to give it lots of great flavor. Okay, that's all done. So I'm just going to take it and put it in the food processor. What I'm looking for is a soup that's smooth but has some texture. So I'm just going to pour about half in. I'll have to do it in 2 batches. These vegetables smell fantastic. So I'm just going to add some chicken stock. I'm going to use about 5 cups total, just enough to blend this. I want it coarse but chunky. Fantastic. Okay, so that's the puree. Now I'm going to make it into soup. Just turn it on low heat. I'm going to add a little more chicken stock. It's about 5 cups total, but just enough until it's the right consistency. You want it thick, but not, you don't want it to taste like a vegetable. You want it to taste like soup. So just whisk it in. It's pretty thick. A lot depends on how much starch is in the potatoes. I'm going to add a little cream. And since it's a French soup, I'm going to add a little creme fraiche. So about 3/4 cup of cream, just to give it a nice richness. And then 8 ounces of creme fraiche, which gives it a little sour, sort of tart flavor. This is going to be wonderful. I thought it'd be great to contrast the texture of the creamy soup with something crispy like these crispy shallots. Here's how you do them. Just add 1.5 cups of light olive oil to a saucepan with 3 tablespoons of butter. Put it in a thermometer and turn the heat on medium-low. Meantime, slice 6 shallots in thin rings. You want crispy? You've got to have thin rings. When the oil and butter reach 220 degrees, you're all ready. So turn the heat to low and add the shallots. They'll take about 30 to 40 minutes to cook. Keep the temperature below 260 degrees so they don't burn. When they're golden brown, take them out with a slotted spoon and spread them onto paper towels to dry. Then the soup gets ladled into bowls, and the finishing touches, extra Parmesan cheese and those fabulous crispy shallots. It's so beautiful.
I've got some ground beef that I've totally browned in a pot with onion and garlic. And I'm gonna add a bunch of tomato paste. I love the kind in a tube because it's just like toothpaste, basically. I'm gonna do probably 2 heaping tablespoons because this adds such richness in a pretty short amount of time. So I'm gonna turn the heat way up, and I wanna smush the tomato paste into the ground beef and try to kind of get it, can you see that, Paige? Get it on the bottom of the pan and just kind of get the flavors of that tomato paste going. Just kind of release the magic of the tomato paste. Okay, so I'm gonna add some salt and pepper because the ground beef really needs it. And I need a little exercise today. And then taco seasoning. You can't have tacos without some kind of taco seasoning. Okay, so this is a shortcut taco soup, which means you don't stop and let things cook a million times. So I'm gonna add a can of tomatoes with green chilies, which is a staple around these parts. And then fire roasted corn and a can of black beans. And I am being very radical, and I am not draining the beans or the corn. And that's just fine, because this is gonna cook so fast and over really high heat. So it's gonna be so good, and it already looks amazing. So then for the liquid, I'm just using vegetable stock. You can use beef stock, chicken stock, whatever stock. And then some hot sauce, your favorite hot sauce of your choice. And then honestly, talk about a one-pot wonder right here. Now all I need to do is bring this to a boil and let it cook really fast for about 10 minutes. Look how violently it is bubbling away. And that's the secret when you're making a quick, shortcut soup. You want to just really bring it to a boil and let it just violently cook for, 10, 15 minutes. Whatever you got available in your schedule. Okay, believe it or not, this soup is ready to serve. And the thing is, this soup is perfect as it is, so you could just serve it without any adornments. But as you know, I like fixins, otherwise known as fixings. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to finish this. Look, this bothers me though. I have to fix this before we continue.
Yeah, that was bothering me.
I can't deal with stuff like that. It keeps me awake at night. Okay, so here, Paige, I'll just put this here so you can really get a good look of the serving. You can also use ground turkey for this delicious soup, but it has such great texture. It's just a triumph, basically. So whatever you put on tacos, you can put on taco soup. So I'm gonna add some cheddar cheese and a good old dollop of sour cream, which I love because you can kind of get little bitty bits of sour cream as you eat it, and it just kind of mixes. Look at all that. I added a lot. And then watch this is super fun. Corn chips, ready? And then just sprinkle. Oh my gosh. And then cilantro, of course, just to give it a little freshness. I mean, that took approximately 45 seconds to make, that whole soup. At least it seems that fast. It's perfect for teenagers, college students, middle-aged moms. Not naming any names, but I love this soup. Watch this.
You always do the eye roll.
Okay. I like the crunch. Ooh, hot. This is good stuff.
So I'm gonna show you like a braising 101.
Okay.
Really important. This is how I braise almost everything. What you add to the braise is up to you. You can like have some fun, and we're gonna do that today. So first of all, the most important thing, we have a boneless pork shoulder.
Okay.
Okay, it's less expensive than, say, a loin roast. And what I've done is I've had the butcher tie it, and you can see it's almost a little dry looking. That's because I've salted it on all sides for 24 hours in the fridge, uncovered, sort of like what you would do a turkey, right? So we talk about that all the time. And then what I'm gonna do is start to sear. Okay, so what we have here in a Dutch oven is some pancetta, and I've rendered it with some sage, okay? We're gonna get that nice and crispy, and that fat is gonna help sort of like a pork on pork magic go on here, okay? So I'm gonna take this fat, this rendered pancetta out and put it on a sheet pan. We're not gonna throw this away because we're gonna add it to the braise right after. Really
throw it
important.
away? Who would do that?
Never. So Jeff, you have a little 101 on vegetables.
Okay, well, so you've chosen rutabagas and turnips, okay? They're great winter root vegetables to use and braise really well and give it a nice alternative to just a standard potato and carrot.
Yeah, braising 101, we're gonna use that because that's your sort of fun addition, and we're gonna use carrots and onions because I use that for every single braise. Now, as you can see, this is smoking. You want it to smoke, really important, and you wanna put this in fat side down, and you're gonna get a sear of your life. You can just see it's gonna work, right? Very important.
That's because you salted it, dehydrated
You hear that?
the exterior so you can
Yes.
get a better crust on it.
Okay, now, I have one here that is going on, and I wanna show you the color. Can you see that?
Wow.
That's really important. You really wanna get color on side. Don't skimp. This is the thing that takes time, but don't mess it up, because once you put it in the oven, you're gonna be done with the dish practically. You're just gonna get some garnish. Okay, so we're gonna pull this out now, and you have here, remember, all that sagey, porky, salty, incredible flavor down in here, and we're gonna add our vegetables. Jeff.
I cut this nice and thick and big,
Great
right?
job.
Because they are gonna break down in that braise. You don't want them to disappear completely.
Carrots, onions, garlic, our rutabaga and turnips. Sorry about that. Our rutabaga and turnips. Okay, and then we're just gonna saute it a bit. And you're not gonna actually cook these. You're just getting them wet and softened with all that fat. So you wanna start the process.
Soak it up.
Oh, this is going great. Now you're getting a real sear on that.
Are you guys braisers? I mean, what do you braise? What meat?
Man, all the
Yeah,
time.
I love a good braised pork loin.
Yeah.
I love a braised anything. Let's put it in there and braise it.
I'm gonna add some rosemary, some sage, one of my secret ingredients.
Miso.
Look at this guy.
Tomato paste. We're gonna give that a quick stir, and then we're gonna add our stout. This is just to get the paste out of the raw stage and get it started to cook. It's gonna cook for 3 hours, so you don't have to worry about it.
And the difference between braising and stewing, the braise is a bigger cut of meat.
Yes.
And the liquid doesn't completely cover it.
Yes.
Whereas the stew, it's smaller cuts of meat and it's all covered.
Exactly. We're gonna add our stout, 2 bottles.
Double journey over here. Look at this guy.
How long did you practice?
30 years.
Look at that.
We're gonna add our chicken stock, and you can use beef stock, vegetable stock, but what's the point of using vegetable stock in this point, right?
I agree.
Just if you've got it in your pantry.
That's right.
And
You're
that's
gonna
the
put
only
this
choice.
back, and you're gonna nestle this. Doesn't that look great? And then the magic. Remember this pancetta with the sage that we crisped up? That's going.
We're
in
not
there?
worthy.
Yes, exactly.
We're not worthy.
Abracadabra.
We're gonna put this in a 300-degree oven for about 3 to 3.5 hours. Yeah, it's gonna take a long time, and go in there and put a fork in it. It should just like fall apart.
To me, this is Sunday perfection.
This is great.
You put this
Sonny, would you open that for
on
me?
and just relax, watch some TV. The house starts to smell incredible. And then you bring it out to the table and everyone loses their mind.
Exactly.
Okay, so again, this is something that we had as a child, like all the time. We were always braising, because what we were buying is very inexpensive cuts of meat, because we didn't have the money to afford filet mignon.
You know?
Just want to take a look at this. Oh.
Oh.
You see that?
Perfection. Stop it.
Isn't that beautiful?
Whoa!
Now, what I've
Stop
done is
it
I've
right
already
now.
removed the string as it was resting, so I just get in there, and now, this is really important. We're gonna put this up just a bit. We're gonna heat this just a second. And so what I'm gonna add to this, if there's any string, just make sure that it's removed. And as you can see, it's a sauce. It's made its own. It's kind of remarkable. The beer and the stock and the fat and the pancetta, everything from the vegetables makes the sauce.
I don't
So
know about
shiny.
you all, but my mouth is watering.
It is.
It's just like a natural reaction that happens.
It's very rich. I'm gonna add a touch of vinegar.
Yeah.
Sherry
You got
wine
it.
or Chardonnay, a sweeter vinegar.
Okay.
Just a touch. All right. So this is something I really like to sort of make. It's an inexpensive cut of meat, but it doesn't have to look like it's inexpensive.
Yeah.
So we're gonna sort of have some fun with this.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna cut this now. This is so moist. I cut it in slightly thicker pieces, because if you cut it too
It'll
thin,
shred,
it's just
right?
Can you see that?
Look at that steak.
Can you just see that gorgeousness happening?
Oh.
It's so jiggly. I love
That's
jiggly
how you
meat.
know it's
I love jiggly
juicy.
meat.
I thought for sure you'd say, go ahead, baby, Jeff. You left me hanging on that.
Sorry. I was too distracted by the
get it.
giant piece of jiggly meat.
So I want to very carefully move this over here, because it is going to fall apart if you're not careful. There you go. Okay.
My goodness.
Let's take this sauce, and then we're just going to ladle some of the sauce, and mostly the vegetables. And remember, There's a lot of sauce, but there's the vegetable. You spent all that time on the vegetables. You really want to put them on top and show them off. I love vegetables, and I love to show them off.
This is the hardest job. You make fun of me for wanting to eat this food. Are you kidding me?
Some fried capers.
Look at this guy.
Okay.
Capers, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit of fried onions.
Yes, I'm into that.
Yes.
Texture, right?
Did you
do
fry
that
those
little bit.
yourself or
I love
those
that.
Yes, these are all real fried. Some fried parsley, which I love. And
Fried parsley.
I was afraid that was seaweed. I'm glad to hear it's parsley.
fresh mint.
What? Yes.
Fresh mint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love mint and meat. It's so delicious.
Yeah, and a little bit of cilantro to give it that real. When you bring it to the table, it should smell like something.
Look at this.
so
It's a
fantastic.
masterpiece.
Okay. Are we ready? I think it's done.
We are
Is there
ready,
anything-
GC. We've been ready.
Okay. There you go. Pork roast. All right. Jeff,
Yep,
you get the taste.
I'm ready.
I'm going to give you the end piece.
I-
Okay. This
Herb
is
just hit
really.
me in the face. Can you smell it?
Oh, I gotta get some of that Crispies. I mean, I'm gonna say something real quick.
Say something.
All right?
Say something.
This is the best braised dish I've ever had. So you
Wow.
have to make it.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
it's not only the best, but it's probably the easiest, right? And do not neglect the accoutrement on here with the fried capers. So you can get the crunch of the onion and those capers on there. Is such a nice surprise. But the meat itself and the root vegetables in there give it just this warm, it's like someone literally jumped into my soul, went down my body, and gave my tummy the biggest, loveliest cuddle hug it's had in a very long time.
I'm starting on the meat mixture for the meatballs, and it's just ground chuck with some minced garlic, and then a third a cup of Parmesan cheese, a third a cup of seasoned Italian breadcrumbs, and then a little bit of cream and some beaten egg. To season it, I'm just gonna add some salt and pepper, and then some finely minced oregano, and then I'll just go in with my hands. Lad and I actually don't really emphasize our birthdays very much, with the exception of last year. I turned 50 and he threw a big surprise birthday party for me. I've never had a surprise birthday thrown for me. I was a little bit shocked. I wouldn't have thought I would want a surprise party, but I wound up having the best time. Now, if I were to do that for Lad, I don't know how he would react. He does not like surprises. He doesn't like big parties thrown for himself. He's kind of a quiet cowboy. He doesn't like a lot of attention. So a birthday, just the two of us, is the perfect way for him to celebrate. All right, this is all smushed together, and I'm gonna pinch a pretty generous amount. I'm making pretty big meatballs. Okay, I got it all smoothed out. So that's one meatball, and I'm gonna make 9 more just like it. I'll put them on a sheet pan first. The next step is to get them into a skillet and brown them in a 1/4 cup of olive oil. You have to turn the meatballs so they cook evenly and give them an occasional shake. It takes about 5 minutes. Don't these meatballs look amazing? They're so brown around the edges. They're not quite cooked all the way through, but they will have plenty of opportunity to do that. So I'm gonna move the meatballs to the edges of the pan and move forward with the sauce ingredients. In the center, I'll scrape in some diced onion and some more oregano and more garlic. So there's oregano and garlic in the meatballs themselves, as well as the sauce. This is Lad's idea of the perfect meal. He loves pasta, loves Italian food, loves cheese, and that is why I love Lad. We have a lot in common when it comes to the things that we like to eat. I'm a little more adventurous than he is, but what do you expect from a woman who's 2 weeks more mature than her husband? Okay, the onions, garlic, and oregano have been sauteing. They're already starting to get soft. So I'm gonna add a whole can of crushed tomatoes right in the center. And Lad and I can both handle a little spice in our life. In fact, At our advanced age, we need a little excitement here and there. Just kidding, we're young little sprites. And then I'm gonna add some water just to help make it saucy. I'm gonna crank up the heat just a little bit. So I'm just gonna let the meatballs keep cooking and simmer in the sauce until they're totally cooked through. Yep, this has Lad's name written all over it. I'm gonna turn the heat off under the meatballs and I'll grab the pasta. I'm just keeping it real classic and doing spaghetti. Now, sometimes if I'm making spaghetti and meatballs right before serving it, I'll put the noodles on a big platter and then carefully spoon the sauce over. It makes a really great presentation. But I'm just gonna mix the spaghetti and meatballs together in the skillet. Get the meatballs kind of on top.
Stuffed cabbage is like old-fashioned Jewish comfort food. It's gonna be really nice and cozy on a cold winter day. Geoffrey's gonna adore this. So it's got three elements. There's a meat mixture, there's cabbage, and there's a tomato sauce. And I'm gonna assemble them all. I've made them ahead, and I'll show you how I make the tomato sauce. It's so delicious, sweet and sour. It starts off just like a regular tomato sauce. 1.5 cups of diced onions, browned in 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and sauteed for about 8 minutes, just until they're translucent. Then you add 2 28-ounce cans of crushed tomatoes and the juice to the pan. 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. This really gives the sauce a great flavor. And some sweetness from 1/2 cup of light brown sugar and 1/2 cup of raisins. Then add 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, 3/4 teaspoon of pepper. Just bring the sauce to a boil, lower the heat, and let it simmer away for about 30 minutes. So 1 cup of the tomato sauce actually ends up in the meat mixture. It gives it lots of flavor. And then I'm gonna save the rest when I assemble the dish. So just mix it in. So what's in the meat? It's just like making meatloaf. I'll show you how I make it. Put 2.5 pounds of ground chuck into a bowl. Then add 3 lightly beaten eggs, 1/2 cup of diced onions, 1/2 cup of plain dry breadcrumbs. I actually use the ones from the grocery store. I think they're better than fresh breadcrumbs here. 1/2 cup of uncooked white rice, and 1 teaspoon of minced fresh thyme leaves. Fresh herbs really give it great flavor. Then just mix it all together. So that was easy, right? Okay, next is the cabbage. And what I did was I blanched them to make them really pliable. I'll show you how I did it. Remove the entire core of the cabbage with a sharp knife. Plunge the whole head of cabbage into a big pot of boiling water. After a couple of minutes, take the cabbage out of the water and put it on a board. Using tongs, carefully peel the outer leaves off. Just keep going until you have about 14 leaves. The last step is take a small sharp knife and remove the hard triangular rib from the base of each leaf. It makes it so much easier to roll. Okay, I'm ready to make stuffed cabbage. So I've got the meat filling, I've got the cabbage and tomato sauce. First thing I'm gonna do is put about 1 cup of tomato sauce in the bottom of the pot, just as a base. And then I'm gonna take about between 1/3 and 1/2 cup of meat filling and put it inside each cabbage. Just right at the base of it, where the rib was taken out, and just roll it up. Put the sides in. You want a neat little package, just like that. And then just put it right on top of the tomato sauce. And just keep going until they're all done. Okay, into the pot, last one. And then cover it with another cup of tomato sauce. Remember, this is sweet and sour, so it's gonna be really good together. Okay, 1 cup of tomato sauce, put the lid on. It's gonna cook 350 degrees for 1 hour. It's all gonna stew together. It's gonna be a very old-fashioned dinner for an old-fashioned birthday boy.
Today I'm making some classic pub food, a little meal of my favorite things. Some soup with some blistering tomatoes and melted mozzarella cheese oozing over the top, and with it, a hamburger. Now I start by blistering some fresh tomatoes in a little bit of canola oil. So I cut an X in the bottom and I core the top. That allows air to pass from one end of the tomato to the other, which means while I'm blistering them, the skin is gonna come off a little bit, get charred, and give my soup this added intensity. I'm gonna use my trusty cast iron skillet, and I'm gonna get it roaring hot. I think food is a lot about the weather. If it's cold outside or it's rainy, it makes me want to make a soup that feels like I'm putting on a jacket. So I can hear that crackling sound of the skin. Let's give him a little flip and see what's happening. Now, the really cool thing about this technique is it stems from watching my mom char peppers on the burner. She would just throw a pepper right on the burner, turn it up high, char the whole thing, and that wonderful smoky smell of the skin charring was so appetizing to me. This soup recreates that feeling, but chars the skin of tomatoes instead. So once the skin starts to come off the tomatoes and peel away and char a little bit, that's when I add 1 tablespoon of regular sugar. Tomatoes that are fresh like this have more acidity, but they need that little secretarial assistance, that pinch of sugar for added sweetness. Now, to cook them and finish cooking them until they're tender, I want to add a little bit of liquid, but a liquid that's dry, that's going to really add flavor. 1/4 cup of dry vermouth. Now, when adding this, I just shut off the heat, so I don't have to worry about a 5-alarm fire. Once I've added the vermouth, I'll just let it simmer on the stove over a nice low heat and just kind of let those tomatoes get nice and soft and tender. I always like to add that fresh element that really takes the soup the extra distance. So I peeled a few shallots. One of my favorite vegetables because they just have a natural sweetness, but they also bring that little oniony bite to the table. They're really versatile. I have to tell you, I grew up in Midtown Manhattan, and on the corner, there was a pub. It was called Mulligan's. It was kind of dark and scary and gloomy, and it had all these amazing smells. Brisket cooking, stroganoff, braised chicken. Scary? Yes. Exciting? Yes. To a young girl walking by, something strangely enticing about the pub. And I think that's where I developed my association with pub food, the weather, a certain mood. So with the 3 shallots, I'm chopping up 10 cloves of garlic. And I'll just take that, swoop it right up, and go into the pot. Add a pinch of chili flakes, a 1/4 teaspoon, and that's just enough to give it a little kick without being spicy. And a tablespoon of oregano. A pinch of white pepper, and a pinch of salt. Just to start drawing the water out of those garlic slices and shallots. A little stir with a wooden spoon, the shallots, the garlic, take a little nose bath, take a minute to smell the flowers and enjoy this. Once this starts to kind of caramelize and cook down, get a little translucent and a little brown, that's when I want to add the canned tomatoes. And I just add 1 can of peeled tomatoes. So the peeled tomatoes are cooked already, so they have a developed sweetness from being cooked that the fresh don't have. And that's why I like to use half and half. The acidic freshness of the fresh tomatoes, and then the more developed sweetness of the canned. But whenever I make a soup like this, there's never enough liquid. Let's add a little water. And to this, I'll add a little bit less sugar, 1 teaspoon. So now I have the 2 halves of my soup cooking. Now this is the kind of soup that I'm gonna put in a crock. After I've poured this delicious combination of fresh and canned tomatoes into my crock, I want there to be that extra layer of bone-warming comfort. So I always turn to a loaf of sourdough bread for that. And I just tear a piece of the sourdough bread, and it has to be enough so that it can perch on top and overlap just a little bit. I'm gonna just toast those pieces of bread at 375 degrees until they get all crunchy. I'll pop these in the oven dry. I don't wanna put any olive oil or butter or anything on that bread because I wanna maximize the crispiness by making it dry. Because I wanna top it with some fresh mozzarella that I will just break into small pieces. I like to use some fresh mozzarella for this. It has a really clean taste, which picks up on the fresh tomatoes we use in the base of our soup. And when the toast is ready and that soup goes in these ramekins, the cheese melts, we are gonna be transported to a Midtown pub for the ultimate comfort moment. So I've let these tomatoes cook down on the stove until they're nice and tender, and you can see that wonderful fresh tomato pulp there, combined with the charred aspect of the skin. Now, as you crush these, you'll get this wonderful liquid, the combination of the juice from the tomatoes, the cooking liquids, some seeds, some charred skin. This is an essential part of this soup's uniqueness. Once these are crushed up a little, we come to the other part of the soup, part 2, the sliced garlic, the shallots, and the canned tomatoes. And this is sort of like the roaring ocean, and this is the nice calm bay, and we're combining them. I'm only gonna puree the fresh tomatoes so that that wonderful charred taste goes all through the soup. Pop that in the blender. Now for that combining of the two parts. And this is really the final step in this soup. Just stir that right in there. And then taste it. I get that charred taste, that hint of chili flake. Sometimes I add just a touch of olive oil at the end just to round it out a little bit. Just pour that olive oil right in. Just a little bit. I kind of don't want it to get completely mixed in. Just leave it a little bit separated so it has that wonderful rich gloss on top. In the meantime, I have this wonderful charred tomato soup, that bread that I so delicately and precisely measured, and then that cheese perched on top. And now I'll just pop these in the oven under the broiler and let that cheese get all melty and fantastic.
I'm gonna make pasticcio, which is like a Greek lasagna. So the first thing I've done is saute 1½ cups of onions in about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. What I'm gonna add is 1 pound of ground beef and 1 pound of ground lamb. It's the lamb that makes it so Greek. You just put it right into the onions. And this is gonna cook for about 8 to 10 minutes until the meat is really browned. Now I'm gonna add ½ cup of a dry red wine. Now I'm gonna add lots of delicious flavors. First thing is garlic, big rough chop. You can add as much as you like. Then I'm gonna add cinnamon, which is a really classic Greek combination of lamb and cinnamon. It just gives it a nice piquant flavor. Usually cinnamon here is used for sweet things, but I love it in savory things. So I'm gonna put a whole tablespoon in. Okay, next is dried oregano. That's classic Greek too. I actually like dried oregano rather than fresh because oregano is so strong, it sort of overpowers it. Pinch of cayenne pepper. As big a pinch as you like, it's hot. And about a teaspoon of fresh thyme leaves. I love the flavor of thyme, so I use fresh thyme leaves. Give it a big stir. This is gonna cook for about 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna get some tomatoes to put in. Okay, so I'm gonna use 1 whole can of crushed tomatoes in puree. It's really thick, and it's gonna make a fabulous sauce. Pour that whole thing in. Get all of it. 2 teaspoons of salt. One teaspoon of pepper. That's just gonna simmer away for about 40 to 45 minutes until it's thick and spicy and delicious. So get a big pot of boiling water, lots of salt so the pasta has good flavor. And what I'm using is something that's called, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing this wrong, conchigliette, which is small shells. You can use any kind of small shells, but these are really good ones. 3/4 pound. So it's most of the box. And now I'm gonna make the cheese sauce. So the first thing I need to do is heat up some milk and cream. I've got 1½ cups of milk and 1 cup of cream. What I'm doing is I'm making a bechamel, which is a white sauce. And while that heats up, I'm gonna make the roux. I've got 4 tablespoons of butter that I've melted in a pan. It's about ½ a stick. I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of flour. It's just all-purpose flour. And just dump it all in at once. The point of this is actually to just cook the flour a little bit so you don't have that raw flour taste in it. Just cook it for about a minute. So the butter and flour are perfectly cooked. They're not browned. Just for about a minute, I'm gonna switch to a whisk. Just to make sure I get a nice, smooth cream sauce. I'm gonna pour the milk and cream in, whisking it. No lumps here. Okay, so this is nice and thick. And now I'm gonna add some flavors. 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of pepper. Next, Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna put about 3/4 of a cup of grated Parmesan into the sauce and then save 3/4 of a cup for the topping so it gets nice and brown and crusty. Okay, give it a big stir. And then I do one other thing. I put 1/2 cup of the meat sauce with the tomatoes and the spices right into the cheese topping. I just think it flavors it and it makes it pink, and I think it looks fantastic. This is gonna cool for about 10 minutes. Now I'm gonna put the pasta right into the tomato sauce. So these are the shells. And just mix it all together. Oh, this looks fantastic. Big baking dish. Any size, just make sure it's big enough. Okay, and just pour it all right in. This is the bottom layer, and then the top layer is all that beautiful bechamel with cheese and yogurt. It smells delicious. Really can smell the cinnamon. So I'm sort of making the bechamel sauce into a custard. 2 eggs. And this is why you want to cool the sauce a little bit so it doesn't cook the eggs, so it just thickens it. Okay, so just stir the eggs right into the hot bechamel. And since it's pasticcio, I say that 3 times, I'm gonna add Greek yogurt, 2/3 of a cup. That actually makes it a little thicker and it adds that nice tang that yogurt has. So I'm just gonna eyeball 2/3 of a cup. And just stir it all in. And now when it bakes, it's gonna bake right on top of the layer of the meat and tomatoes and shells. This looks fantastic. Okay, so I'm just gonna pour this on top. I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of Parmesan cheese right to the top. Just sprinkle it evenly over the top of it. Okay, into the oven, 350 degrees for an hour, and it's gonna be hot and bubbly, and he's gonna be a very happy guy.
That's great.
Isn't that interesting?
So gullah cooking is all about one pot dishes. It's about evoking flavor with little to nothing. And the reason for that was to make something that could last. A soup can go a long way. A stew can go a long way. I'm gonna head over to my stove here and make the roux. And a roux is just basically flour and some type of fat. It thickens it up, it gives it flavor, it gives it color. I got about a cup of canola oil. You need an oil with a high smoke point because it burns quickly. And the thing about a roux is you gotta stand by that pot. 1 cup of flour. Break down the oil in the flour. I have my Dutch oven on about a medium-high heat. And what I'm doing right now is actually burning the flour and the oil. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the start of a roux. You gotta brown it. But for a gullah gumbo, it's gonna be on the lighter side because I'm not cooking the roux as long, but it's still gonna have lots of flavor. And I'm starting to see that peanut butter color that I'm looking for. And it's just basically that flour is just, browning with the oil. So keep scraping. And if you start to see that it's burning a little too quickly, turn your heat down just a little bit. And we're almost there. All right, I'm gonna add my veggies in now and cook my veggies down with the roux. Look at that. Ooh. What I'd like to do right now is start adding in my spices. A few pinches of salt, black pepper. And because it wouldn't be me if I didn't add my house seasoning, some smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder. All right, so I'm adding a pinch of mace. Mace is almost like nutmeg. It smells like nutmeg, it's very bright. And if you can't find mace, you can always use nutmeg. A pinch of gumbo filet. Gumbo filet is ground sassafras plant, all right? I'm gonna add 2 bay leaves in there. Now I'm gonna grab my garlic and tomatoes. And I like to add in my garlic and tomatoes at this point because I don't want to cook out that garlic flavor. I want it to be really pronounced in the gumbo. And tomatoes cook down fairly quickly, so I like to add it in at this point as well. Now for the liquid. I'm gonna add in about 3 cups of seafood stock. So just about this whole box, leave a cup. I'm also adding about 3 cups of chicken stock. And the reason I'm mixing the stocks is because I'm adding smoked turkey and I'm also adding seafood. Gotta add the shrimp. It wouldn't be gullah if I didn't. All right. I'm gonna bring this to a rolling boil. I'm gonna also add smoked turkey wing. My grandmama and them always added some type of smoked meat to help enhance the flavor of whatever stew they're making. Okay, so I'm gonna let this go uncover, just let it simmer. After an hour, I'm gonna add the lima beans. I'm gonna let the lima beans cook up in this. And then last but not least, you know I'm gonna throw in some shrimp. Of course, I'm gonna add traditional gullah crab rice to the top of that gumbo. I'm gonna heat up 2 cups of chicken stock because it infuses flavor into the rice. This is about half of this box. For every 1 cup of rice, you use 2 cups of liquid. And it's important to rinse your rice. Let me tell you why. You gotta get that starch off the rice. Once my water runs clear, you know you got most of the starch off. My stock has come to a boil. I'm gonna add my rice, bring it down to a simmer and cover it. All right, while that goes for about 15 minutes, I'm gonna cut up my Trinity. Got a tomato I'm gonna use a little later, and of course, garlic. Crab rice tastes just like it sounds. It's crab meat and rice. Now we like to use blue crab claw meat because it evokes more of that crabby flavor. If you wanna be traditional, you gotta use claw meat. And if you wanna go old school, you'll sit there and crack some blue crabs and add that meat into the rice. That's how my great-grandparents used to do it, okay? Got about half of this bell pepper that I'm dicing up finely. All right, add it to this bowl. And I got 1 clove of garlic, of course. Y'all know I like my garlic. You know what, to make life easier, I'm just gonna add the garlic to the veggies right there. Right now, there's so much flavor going on here, everything is just gonna melt together and it's gonna be awesome. Let's get this veggie sauteed. What I like to do is start my crab rice with a little butter and oil. I like to use the combination of 2 types of fat. Butter has a little bit more water content. So to really get a nice fry on my veggies, I like to add oil. And while that's getting hot, it's been about 15 minutes. Let's see if the rice is done. My rice is nice and fluffy. Let me tell you another secret to getting the perfect fluffy rice. After it's done, you turn the heat off, put your top back on, and let it steam off the heat. Your rice will be nice and fluffy and not overcooked. Let me add the onions, the garlic, and the celery. A little salt to draw out some of that water. Ooh, smells so good. All right, so I'm just cooking it till it gets a little softened and the onions turn translucent. I'm gonna take my rice, add the rice to the pot. My grandmother and my mom, they call everything in the house a pot. Even though it's a pan, it's a pot. Get all the crusty stuff. We're almost like making fried rice. Turn my heat down just a little bit. I'm gonna grab my crab meat. This is a pound of crab claw meat. To really get that crab flavor, you gotta use the claw meat. I wanna grab some of my house seasoning, 2 heavy pinches of that. And last but not least, tomatoes. A pop of freshness. It's gonna also give it a pop of color. Crab meat, rice, bell pepper. I tell you, this is a meal in itself. Let me close this up right now because I tell you, I'm about to sit down and eat a bowl of that by itself. So this has been going on for about an hour. Let me add my lima beans. Ooh, what is gullah gumbo without lima beans? Every stew, every soup my grandmother makes, she adds lima beans. And that's why I add lima beans to my gumbo. This turkey is starting to loosen up a little bit. I'm gonna pull that turkey apart and it's gonna be a part of the meat too. The color is beautiful. Those lima beans look great. I got a pound of shrimp that I've cleaned, deveined it, deshelled. And had I put the shrimp in earlier in the process, it just would have been overcooked. And who wants tough shrimp? No, 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 no. Now I'm gonna take my turkey wing out and shred it and put it back into my gullah gumbo. Not only do you get a bite of shrimp, you're also gonna get a little bite of smoked turkey. I'm gonna put the bone back in there with the shredded meat.
My friend Patricia's coming after a really long trip from Paris. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to just greet her with like big steaming bowls of chili? But since she's being really good, I thought maybe instead of making beef chili, I'd make chicken chili. So I've got about 4 cups of onions and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and they've cooked until you can really smell them, about 10 minutes. And then I'm gonna add lots of good stuff. 2 tablespoons of chopped garlic. This is gonna be really good. You wanna cook the garlic for just a minute so it doesn't get really bitter. And 2 yellow peppers and 2 red peppers. This is a really quick way to cut peppers, just straight down. And then what's left over you can use for snacking. And I'm just gonna do big chunks. I think chili should be big chunks of good stuff. So, peppers. Okay, now all the good spices. First thing, of course, is chili powder. So I've got a teaspoon of chili powder. Teaspoon of cumin, which is a really essential ingredient in all chilies. And then these are the things that make it hot. Red pepper, just sort of a pinch of it, maybe a 1/4 teaspoon, and then cayenne pepper, which is really hot. So use it at your own risk. I like when things have a lot of flavor and a little bit of heat, but if you like it really hot, just add more. So 2 teaspoons of salt. This is great. And I'm gonna cook that for about a minute while I get the tomatoes ready. I always make this with canned tomatoes. Life's too short to peel a tomato. So I'm just gonna chop them up really quickly. And put in 2 28-ounce cans of tomatoes. Try not to get it all over the kitchen like I do. And into the sauce. Give it a stir. So most chili has cilantro in it, but I personally hate cilantro, so I'm gonna put basil in instead. It gives it great flavor. Just take the leaves off. And just give it a really rough chop. So maybe about a 1/4 cup should be good. Wonderful. So this is gonna cook for about 30 minutes. So this is a chicken that I cooked on the bone with the skin on it, and it really keeps it moist. I just tested all different kinds of ways of doing this, and I found it's so much better roasting it than it is to boil it the way you normally do it for a chicken like this. Patricia's on a book tour for her new book, Provence, and I can't wait to see it. So just sort of tear it off the bone with your hands. It's the best way to do it. So big chunks. I want it to be really delicious and chunky. Right into the pot. And just stir it around. This is gonna cook for about 20 minutes so all the flavors get into the chicken, the chili, cumin, basil, tomatoes. So we got all kinds of toppings. Cheese, tomatoes.
I love cheese.
A little sour cream.
Yeah.
I have a little sour cream.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Some chips.
Did you just create this like in the shower one morning or something?
Well, you know, I always made beef chili, and I just thought, wouldn't it be healthier if I made chicken chili? So I just put chicken in instead.
Brilliant.
The pancetta. If you can have your butcher or your deli person cut that for you in about 1/4 inch, that's what you're looking for. If you don't have the pancetta to work with, thick cut bacon with as little seasoning to it as possible. I need to get some of the pancetta out. And I've taken this pancetta, gone nice and slow. Mom, if you don't mind, I need 4 yolks and 1 whole egg. Half of the pancetta comes out, nice and crispy. I haven't put too much heat on this. Nice crunch, nice crisp. Okay, so we'll hold on to this. Let it continue to cook down a little bit, and let me get some salt into my pasta water. Very nice. And bucatini is the pasta. Now this is, out of all the types of pasta, this is my favorite. The kids are big penne rigate, you know, the penne pasta. This to me is kind of the cross. Love spaghetti, love the texture. It's what we used to throw on the ceiling in Ferndale. But this right here has a hole through it, bucatini, small hole. So what we're gonna do is take a pound of this, and remember, when it comes to pasta, I really think spending the money on it, getting the pasta that's got kind of a rough finish to it, not a super sheen, it's the way that it was dried, it was the way that it was processed, pay the money for the pasta. You're gonna eat it, do it, okay? So that goes down. Nothing like dry pasta. It just gives, it gives a better tooth. Al dente, you know, to the tooth.
Yeah.
Now, a little cayenne pepper. Just a touch. Just, I mean, we're talking just a touch. And a little black pepper, Mom, if you want to go ahead and grab a fork. I'm kind of mix this up a little bit. There we go. Bring it right under here. So pull the rest of this off. I just have to divide it. I'm going to save some of that pancetta right there. I wanted to let it go a little bit further. Some of the pancetta is going to go on top. Let it cool down a little bit, and then we're going to mix it into the eggs. So it's going to be the eggs. And Mom, you can go ahead and throw that cheese in whenever you're ready. We're not making an omelet. This is all the beginning preparation right in there. This is all the beginning preparation for making the carbonara. It's very simple, but it's just premium ingredients done the right way. I'll take the heat off of that. I'm going to mix that bucatini in there in just a little bit. I have got some bucatini pasta down that I'm going to drop some frozen peas into, all for the carbonara. Now, you're saying, you put the peas in, oh, they're going to overcook, it's going to be crazy. No, what's going to happen, I'm going to give them one little quick stir, and I'm going to take them out. That's just going to thaw them out just enough. I don't want them to sit there and get thawed out on the counter. Then they get mushy, and it just won't work right, okay? Over to the pot, to this pan here that has a little bit of that pancetta fat. That's what I'm looking for. Reserve that water there, just to make a little bit of the pan sauce. Pancetta, some yolks, and some Parmesan cheese all go together for this dish. Now, bucatini, the pasta with a hole in it, the spaghetti with a hole in it, isn't the normal one that you use for this dish, but not to worry, it's my favorite. So what I want to do is move this real quick and make sure that I don't create omelet a la pasta. Okay? Now let me get a little bit of Italian parsley into there. Oh, get down into the bowl. And the pancetta's already there. Beautiful color. Right behind you, Mom.
Okay.
Okay, I got a little reserved pancetta that we hit right on top of that. And a little bit of the Italian parsley. And some more of the grated Parmigiano Reggiano.
This is actually one of my favorite dishes. It's pasta with white truffle butter. I sliced all of these cremini mushrooms. I'm just going to saute them in a little bit of butter, a little bit of oil, until they're really sort of golden brown. This is a great dish for the holidays because you make huge amounts of it. I'm just going to let them cook slowly so they get really nice and tender and browned. Okay, that's the mushrooms. So that's going to cook away. Next thing I want to do is make the sauce. The sauce is really easy. It's heavy cream, about a cup of heavy cream. I'm just going to heat it up. And I think I'm going to do some salt and pepper in it too. I use kosher salt and fresh cracked pepper and 2 pots of this white truffle butter. I'm going to turn off the heat and just melt the truffle butter in it. Just let it melt in. You're not going to believe how fast this dish is. And it's great for the holidays. You make large batches of it. It's good with chicken, you know, as a side dish. It's great on its own with a salad, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. Okay, that's just going to melt right into that. I've got a large pot of boiling water, lots of salt, really important. I'm just going to dump the pasta in. So this is fresh fettuccine. It's going to cook in like 2 minutes. Fantastic. One more pasta. That's a lot of pasta. Okay, the mushrooms are cooking away. It's like a one-man song and dance band over here. I think the pasta's done. Just gonna drain it. Whoa, that's a big pot of pasta. So I'm gonna put the pasta right into the cream sauce, and then it really absorbs the flavors. Okay, fresh chives. I think they're really good on this pasta. Ooh, that smells great. So just toss it in with tongs. I can really smell the truffles and the butter and the cream. I mean, how good does this look? Wow. And add the cooked mushrooms, all these cremini mushrooms with a little butter. And then the last thing is fresh Parmesan cheese. I mean, for a whole dinner, that was pretty fast, wasn't it? Lots of Parmesan cheese right on top. Toss it in with the tongs. Sprinkling of chives on the top, a little Parmesan cheese. And I would say dinner is served. We were being very polite and waiting for you.
It smells so good.
So it's pasta with white truffle butter. And Geoffrey made the pasta.
I made the pasta. I never thought I could do it.
No one did.
No.
Was it hard?
It was really hard, let me tell you. I got up, the sun was just rising. I worked all day long.
You look exhausted.
But it shows, right?
It's really
Does it show?
We're the beneficiaries.
Is it really good?
Yes.
I'm not feeling the appreciation.
Geoffrey, how long do you cook fresh pasta?
Well, you cook it until it's done.
I'm making delicious, meaty, very cowboy-friendly lasagna for the guys. I'm adding 3 pounds of ground beef and 2 pounds of just regular pork breakfast sausage to a big pot. And then I'll add about 5 cloves of minced garlic. Now I'm just gonna cook the meat mixture until it's totally browned. I'm gonna add 2 28-ounce cans of diced tomatoes, and then I'll add 2 cans of tomato paste. If you have the little cans of tomato paste, you'd actually need to add 4 cans. This is one of those recipes that I could seriously make in my sleep because my mom made it so much and I have made it so much. All right, now I'll just stir in all the tomato stuff, and I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. It's a lot of meat, so it needs some seasoning. I'll add some fresh herbs later. It just needs to simmer uncovered for about 45 minutes. Okay, now I'm gonna add half of the herbs to the sauce, and then I'm gonna save the rest of the herbs for the cheese mixture. Okay, the sauce is pretty much ready, so I'll go ahead and make the cheese mixture for the lasagna. I've got 2 big containers of cottage cheese. Even if you don't like cottage cheese by itself, it's delicious in this lasagna. My husband would not touch cottage cheese by itself to save his life, but he loves this lasagna. All right, now to the cottage cheese, I'll add 4 beaten eggs, and that helps bind the lasagna all together. And then a cup of grated Parmesan. Then I'll add a little bit of salt and pepper and mix it all together. The cottage cheese mixture is a little more mild than the ricotta flavor, so you really taste the meat and the sauce. All right, that's all stirred together. Now I'll just throw in the rest of the herbs, the parsley and the basil. All the elements are ready, and I'm gonna start assembling it. I'll lay 4 lasagna noodles in the bottom of these disposable foil pans. All right, on top of the layer of noodles, I'm gonna spoon 1/4 of the cheese mixture right over the top. So I'll just spread that all over the noodles. Now on top of the cheese mixture, I'm gonna lay slices of mozzarella. It's just a big old spoonful, pretty much on top of each slice of cheese. All right, and spread that out. Now I'm gonna repeat the layer exactly like the first one. It needs to bake at 350 for about 45 minutes to an hour until it's hot and bubbly. I'll leave the foil on so the top won't get too burned.
The onions right now. We're gonna use some Anaheims right here, okay? Some red bell, look at that, just sweating up nice. This Fresno chili here, I'm not too worried about the heat on it. Pretty mild, so I'll just give it a couple slices down the front. So far, so good, huh? Okay, add a little bit of salt to it. Let's get into dry chilies. Now, this is really the foundation of this chili. What we're first starting off is with some chili de árbol, which is nice and spicy, the ancho, and guajillo. So now I'm gonna reconstitute them with just a little bit of hot water, okay? I'm gonna do it right there in that pan. and those are gonna go directly into the chili in just a minute. Speaking of the chili, I need to get those peppers and onions out of there because now I have got some top round that I want to brown off. And we're talking about, I don't want it to be interrupted. I really want to build some crust, kind of like we're searing a short rib. So what I want to do is get all these out, because you leave just a little bit of this in there. There's a lot of moisture. It'll keep the meat from really browning up. Look how beautiful, huh? So we'll just hit it with a little touch of some salt, and we'll just drop it, crank that pan back up, right back in. There we go. Nice little sear gonna happen to that. And I also have some ground beef that I'll put in a little bit. I like to have two of the textures. It needs a little bit of this garlic. So I have these reconstituted guajillos, chili de árbol, and anchos, okay? Hit that, a little bit of power, puree it. There we go. We'll dump this right in here on with the meat, in with that garlic that I just added. That's where your real flavor is coming from. Let me drop this in, sweated peppers and onions that we had from earlier. And that all gets mixed together. Look at that. Look, take a look inside of this. Now it's time to go build another layer of seasoning. So I've done some salt and pepper, got the peppers and the garlic. Now we'll do a touch of cayenne, a little oregano, a little bit of cumin. Gotta have a little kiss of cinnamon. 2 quarts of beef stock. We're gonna let this go in here. It's gonna cook down, believe it or not, for 2 hours. Beer cheddar cheese sauce. So start with a roux, a little half and half. Not too much half and half because we're adding in a full beer. Nice amber beer, so you're gonna get that deep, rich beer flavor. Drop it in some sharp cheddar, a little touch of cayenne, dry mustard. Gotta have that little tang in there from the dry mustard. A little bit of Worcestershire, a little touch of paprika. Okay, so let that go. Get some cream cheese. We got beer, we've got chili. We'll lay that right in like that. And we'll just let this go low and slow till it breaks up that cream cheese. There we go. Okay, but what I want to do right now, I want to get a little bit of beer and I want to get a little bit of masa harina. And I also want to add a little bit of paprika. There we go. So we're going to mix this up. So we'll just slowly incorporate this in, and this is going to work as an awesome thickener. It kind of plays right into the theme of Texas and chili and Tex-Mex. You take a look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me that is not gorgeous. Right on top there. Look at that.
It's homeschool co-op day for my oldest child, Alex, and her best friend, Meg. Every Friday they go to Tulsa to a homeschool co-op, and my best friend, Hyacinth, takes them. Every single week, she takes them, stays with them all day, and brings them home. The last thing Hyacinth needs is to worry about cooking dinner every Friday night. So I'm gonna whip up some yummy beef stew with cheddar cheese grits for Hyacinth, and that way she won't have to think about dinner at all. I've got 2 pots going because I'm actually gonna make one for Hyacinth's family and one for mine. I'm gonna brown the meat first. I got a chuck roast and cut it into big cubes. I actually haven't told Hyacinth that I'm making dinner for her. I'm just gonna run in and pick up Alex like I always do and then spring dinner on her at the last minute. Okay, the meat's nice and brown, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it out of the pot. It's by no means cooked. It looks like it is, but in the stew, it's gonna simmer for a couple of hours, and this chuck roast gets so tender. I'm gonna add an onion to each pot. The pot is nice and brown. It has a lot of bits from the meat in there. And then I'm gonna add about 3 cloves of chopped garlic to each pot. All right, now I'll just stir the onions and garlic around a bit. The pots are so hot, they're almost translucent already, so I really just need to cook them for about a minute. So I'm just gonna take a break and grab a couple beers. It's been a long day. Just kidding. I'm gonna add the beer to the stew. This gives the stew really great flavor. So I'm just gonna add 32 ounces of beef stock to each pot. Now to the pots, I'm just gonna add a few dashes of Worcestershire. Worcestershire always adds a nice savoriness, a little bit of richness. Then I'm just gonna add a little bit of tomato paste to each pot. Gives it a little bit of a tang, gives the sauce a little bit of richness. So good. And I like to add paprika to the stew also. It gives it a great flavor, but it also kind of helps with the color. And then I'll add a little bit of sugar to each pot. Now the last thing I need to do in this stage is add the meat into the pot. So I'll just slide half into this one and half into this one. Okay, now I'll just stir the meat in, make sure it's all combined. And then all I need to do now is be patient. I'm gonna put the lids on the pot, turn the heat down, let the beef stew simmer for about an hour and a half, and then I'll put the root vegetables in, let it simmer until it's done. And Hyacinth is gonna be so happy. All right, the beef stew's been simmering away for about an hour and a half, and now it's time to add in the vegetables. I gotta tell you, oh, this smells so delicious. I smell everything, the beer, the broth. Now, I've got 2 carrots for each pot, and then I also have 2 parsnips for each pot. And then I have 1 turnip, and that's enough for both pots. So about a half a turnip per pot. Now, I didn't want to add these at the beginning because the vegetables would be pretty much disintegrated. So this is the perfect time to add them. Let them simmer for about 30 minutes till the veggies are nice and tender. The last thing I'm going to do is thicken up the cooking liquid a little bit. I'll drizzle in some beef stock into 3 tablespoons of flour, and I just want to make a really, really smooth, pretty thin paste. Now I'll just add a little bit into each pot. And then it's gonna keep bubbling just for about 10 minutes or so, and it's gonna make the stew just perfect and rich and thick. I'm hungry.
My mom made everything. I was very lucky. My mother stayed at home. She cooked for all 3 of us. She was always recreating dishes, but there are always leftovers, and this is kind of a leftover dish, and I must say, because we were very parsimonious. You know that word?
Very, very.
Never heard that word before.
Frugal.
And frugal, and my mother would make everything. She loved to make casseroles. This is a shepherd's pie. This is based upon a lot of the stuff she did. Mac and cheese, chop suey, you remember that. Anything with a potato. So in homage to my mom, I'm making a shepherd's pie, all right? Okay, so Sonny's already starting. Again, very simple, humble ingredients. Potato, some milk, some sour cream, butter, and eggs. She is ricing potatoes. The secret to this is they must be warm. Cooking them completely in salted water from cold. There's nothing worse than an undercooked potato.
Oh my God.
Unless you're gonna fry them again, you gotta really do it this way. And this is a ricer. This is a fantastic machine. It lets the potato get to a state where you can mash it without getting gummy.
Exactly.
And that's the biggest problem. So to that, she's gonna add warm milk, sour cream, warm butter. This is not clarified butter, just regular melted butter, a good amount of salt and pepper, and 2 egg yolks. And these are gonna be added at the end so they don't cook. And we're just gonna get them all in, whipped together.
All right.
Okay, and these are just 2 egg yolks.
Chef.
You got it?
Got it.
Okay, so right here I have some onions in a casserole with rosemary. You can add garlic if you want. I just like the onions. And I'm gonna get them almost to the point where they're like kind of crusty. Okay, and then I'm gonna add ground lamb. We eat a lot of lamb in my household growing up. Back then it was really inexpensive.
It was.
So this is just ground lamb. You can use beef, you can use turkey, you can use whatever you want. Like I said, it's a casserole. What does that mean? It's a leftover.
That's right.
So go for it. And we have potatoes that will make anybody happy. A little salt and pepper, let it go, caramelize it, and this is what it looks like after about 4 or 5 minutes. It's all nice and brown here, okay? And to that, we're gonna add a little bit of flour, just to thicken it a touch, some tomato paste, and a little bit of sherry wine vinegar.
Was this like something when you knew your mom was making shepherd's pie, you were excited to sit down at the table? Or was this like something, a shepherd's pie again?
No,
I can't wait to elevate it.
She would make a lot of these. She would make a lot of casseroles, and it's not necessarily shepherd's pie. It's like anything in a casserole, this methodology. So it could be potato with cabbage. She would make it with meatless. I didn't even know there was meatless.
A casserole is so comforting.
Oh, it's so comforting.
Isn't it? It does take you right back to your childhood. Anything mashed potato.
Okay, how you doing over there, son?
Really good. I aggressively salted it. Did you want pepper in this at all?
Yes.
Okay.
And to this, we're gonna add some pearl onions, kind of fancy. You don't have to add pearl onions. I love onions.
You can get the frozen kind.
You can get the frozen kind. Some carrots and peas. You can add whatever you have again.
So you cooked those pearl onions before you put them in?
Yes.
Got a little color on them?
Yes, you don't have to, but I just did. Some parsley. A good amount of parsley. Really important.
You guys know the difference between shepherd's pie and cottage pie?
It's the meat.
What does shepherd's pie always have? in it?
Lamb.
And what does cottage pie have? in it?
Beef.
Beef.
Yes, exactly.
So if you can take a look at this, you see we have, I mean, you know it's gonna be good, right? You have the little vinegar, the tomato, the flour's gone, basically. It's gonna do its job in about 2 seconds when I add some stock. You can add water, chicken stock, beef stock, vegetable stock, anything just like that. And then the magic. Sonny's gonna give us we're gonna put this right on top. I'm gonna bring this over here, Sonny, and we're gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. You don't even have to get a casserole dish out.
Here.
You trust me?
I trust you.
Oh my God.
My
Hold
sous
on.
chef. You gotta
Let
trust
me do
your sous
one
chef.
more taste. You do.
Otherwise,
but-
you're gonna be in the kitchen all day long yourself.
Yeah, it's trusted perfectly.
Okay. Put the entirety of that on top. When I mean entirety, this will serve 10 people.
Great ratio.
Jeffrey, let me ask you,
Yes.
this is your childhood favorite. Is it becoming your children's childhood favorite?
Unfortunately, they don't get things so homey. They do get homey stuff, but I haven't actually made this for them yet. But now I'm going to.
Keep the tradition going.
This is just beautiful. Sonny's just, look at Sonny. Wow.
Well, I mean, it's meat and potatoes.
It is
GP.
meat and potatoes.
I'm in my happy place, you
All
know
right,
what
you
I'm
ready
saying?
to get really happy?
Are you gonna do your thing?
I'm gonna do my thing.
Oh,
I think I see what's coming.
Melted butter.
Oh,
Oh,
that is good.
yeah.
I know.
I got you hills and valleys. Should I have leveled it off better?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Wow.
Hills and valleys and Parmesan cheese.
Okay.
Or any other cheese you have grated in the box. Doesn't really matter.
American?
Not American. Okay? Could you open the oven for me?
Yeah, I got you.
No, that'd be good, though.
375.
I'm starting to think about
Bottom
it.
oven,
On
please.
mashed potato
375
combo.
for at least 40 minutes.
Okay, gonna get all nice and brown and
take that one
crusty
home.
over there.
Here we go. Oh, look at that. Can you
Oh,
see that?
stop it.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. Right here. We sat in the right place.
Okay, you have hills and valleys in that too.
Yeah, we know it's just painted kind of. Isn't that beautiful?
It is gorgeous.
Look at that guy right there.
Yes.
That's like McKinley. That's K2.
Oh my gosh, look at that. That is gorgeous.
So that's what it should look like. A little parsley
Gorgeous.
for you.
Oh,
And carrots always
for
reminds
moi?
me of childhood.
Oh, man, I'm making this.
And the great thing is the potato is fortified with those eggs. So extra little, you know, something.
Gigi, only you could make a humble shepherd's pie. Tastes like $1 million.
Now I've got 2.5 pounds of ground beef that's all brown. Now normally I would drain off all the fat after this, but there's hardly any fat to drain, so that's convenient for me. Now into the beef, I'll add 2 cans of just regular tomato sauce. Then I'll add a little salt and pepper. And then just to give it a little kick, I'll add some crushed red pepper. Not too much. Okay, now I'm gonna let the sauce simmer. Now I have a pound of just regular old egg noodles. They should be ready. So I'll just drain them into a bowl. It's a really great layered dish. Really simple, but still lots of things going on. Okay, now I'll just add some creamy stuff to the noodles. First, about 2.5 cups of just regular cottage cheese. And if you think you don't like cottage cheese, don't worry, you won't even know it's in there, I promise. And then I'll add a good cup of sour cream, some salt and pepper. And then part of what makes this so delicious, I add a good amount of green onions. The green onions just add a really nice tang, a really deep flavor. And because the noodles are hot, it sort of melts the creamy mixture. All right, the creamy mixture is totally coating the noodles. So now it's just about assembling it. I'll start with 1/4 of the noodles. I'm doubling the regular recipe, so I have to keep track of the amounts I have. Just throw about 1/4 in there. That looks good. And I'll smooth them out. And then I'll just ladle 1/4 of the sauce over the noodles. The original sour cream noodle bake recipe calls for just combining all the sauce and all the noodles together. But I really like layering it because it keeps the elements separate. And then every bite you get a little bit of cheese, a little bit of creaminess. It's really nice. And then I'll top this layer with some grated sharp cheddar cheese. And I grated this myself. I like the consistency of cheese you grate yourself rather than the pre-grated stuff. Okay, now on to the next layer. Now I'll top the final layer with more cheese. Okay, now these are all assembled. I'm just gonna let them cool and pop them in the freezer, and then they'll be ready to throw in the oven whenever we want them.
I'm gonna make some split pea soup. Okay, 2 tablespoons of olive oil and a cup of onions, about 1 yellow onion. I always put the onions in first because they don't burn as easily as the garlic. Just mince the garlic finely. You know, there's no real secret to mincing. The only thing you want to do is hold the tip down with one finger and then move the handle up and down. Otherwise the knife jumps all over the board and it's hard to control. Okay, garlic's ready. Okay, now some flavors. Definitely need salt and pepper. 1½ teaspoons of salt. I use kosher salt. 1 teaspoon of pepper. And ½ teaspoon of dried oregano. Oh, can't get that. And just stir that around. Let that cook with the onions. Wonder how TR is getting along with his assignment. Sounds like a secret mission. I think the onions and garlic are done. Hope TR likes this soup. It's nice to have something that's actually delicious and good for you. I'm gonna add 2 cups of carrots, chopped. I like big chunks. You want this to be really good, hearty, chunky soup. Okay. And a cup of diced potatoes. Nice thing about the potatoes is you don't have to peel them. You don't have to bother. Peel tastes just fine. It's gonna cook for a long time. And who wants to peel anything that small anyway? Okay, right into the pot. 8 cups of good chicken stock. This is homemade. If you can make it homemade, it's really worth it. But if not, you can find a good chicken stock in the grocery store. Okay. And now we're going to put in split peas. So, I'm going to use about 1 pound of split peas, which is about 2 cups of split peas total. But I'm going to only put in about 1½ cups to start with, so it makes a really thick soup. And then I put the rest in right at about halfway through the cooking, so you get really chunky, just the bite of split peas also. So I'm just going to let this simmer for about 40 minutes. This is going to be a really nice soup to come home to. So split pea soup is half done, looking pretty good. So at this point, halfway through the cooking, I'm going to add another ½ cup of split peas. And what that does is, then the split peas that are already in there get really soft and make the soup really rich and thick. And then these split peas will cook a little less, so they'll have a little bit of bite to them, which is really good. I like both textures. Continue to let this soup simmer and just cook it for another 40 minutes. It's going to be rich and delicious and so good for you.
Some shallots go down and a little bit of garlic. Now this is one of my favorite ways to handle garlic and to handle shallots is to kind of slow roast them. When you slow roast them, you kind of bring out that sweetness that you really love about it. People say, oh, I don't like garlic, it's so bitter, it's so, because you probably had it the wrong way. Come over here to Daddy, Dr. Garlic, and I'll help you out. Okay? All right. So we get those together in a little bit of a tent, hit it with a little olive oil. Actually, I like to throw a little salt and a little pepper in there too. Kind of sealed up, not super, super tight. Check it out. And down we go on a pan. Kind of a nice little Easter basket-y thing. Okay, in about 325, 20 minutes or so. Now, while that's going and getting nice and caramelized, let me get some bacon and some heavy cream, and this is gonna be kind of the beginning and start. Was it the cream? You all big cream fans? I like that. You didn't strike me as cream fans, but okay, always check it too. I'll tell you a great story. One time I'm making fettuccine, Cajun chicken Alfredo, or actually it's tequila turkey fettuccine, and we got the, because I always get those mixed up. And we asked my buddy's wife to stop. It's not his wife anymore, actually. But we asked her to stop and get the cream for us, the heavy cream. And it was actually the sweetened heavy cream. So make an Alfredo sauce with that. And my buddy that's watching this right now is dying that I said that. But just keep it between us and the other 400 million people watching this. Okay, a little thyme going into this. Forget it, I'm not taking it off the stem. I don't have any time for that, but hey! Okay, so let's check these out. These have got a nice little crunch going to them. This cream is gonna reduce down by about 1/3 if I turn the heat up. Okay, now I'm going low and slow on the bacon because I really want to render down the fat and get some nice crispy bacon because I'm going to pile that on top of this mac daddy and cheese. That's all I can sing. Okay, shallots and garlic. Hot, 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 hot. And don't tell me you don't do that at home. Okay, now the bacon's gonna work in 2 different ways. One, it's gonna be a nice crunchy topping, and 2, it's gonna work as the base of my, my roux that's going to work with my cream to tighten up to make my cheese sauce. Yes. I know you're all... Bacon, cheese sauce, yeah, my middle name, okay. Open those bad boys up, get that garlic out. This is a great way to do it. I'll tell you, if you take some garlic like this whole thing I did with the shallots, and go ahead and make a spread out of it and put it on top of some bread and hit a little fresh Roma tomatoes on top of that. You will love it. Who took my knife? That one's... Turkey man took it? It's getting close to your day, isn't it? Okay. Give these a quick little chop up. Talk amongst yourselves. Your favorite turkey recipe? These go in. Now, so I've got some hot oil. I got the shallots and garlic. They're doing their time. Let's get over with a little bit of flour. Why do you keep putting these over here? What's your... I don't know what your problem... I mean, the whole time. Okay, a little bit of flour goes down. Make some roux. Try not to ruin... No, I'm sorry. I'm not even going to say it. I let it go. Come on. Halfway through, I let it go. Okay? Now... Here we go. We get this down. Now, we could put a little color on this if we want, kind of darken it up if we were doing a gumbo or something. But right now, I'm making it kind of blonde. Now, I'm going to hit him with some cream. Now, the cream's been doing some thyme. That I can do. Okay? Let me scoop that thyme out of there. Get that out of the way. Okay, now what's happened here is it's reduced by about 1/3. Now, adding the warm cream in right now is kind of the kicker. If you put in the cold cream on top of the flour, that's when you don't know why you get mystery dumplings in your gravy. Okay, so just a little at a time, right in on top of that. And this works as the bridge to adding in our cheese. So people make mac and cheese and they say, well, as soon as I heat my cheese up in the microwave, I don't have anything against microwaves. But as soon as you heat up the microwave, it all kind of tightens up so much. You get that big clump at the bottom of the fondue pot. It's because you push the cheese too fast and it kind of tightens up and forms into a ball. So, there we go. Done with this guy. You know the movie? Done with this guy. All right, now we get a little pepper jack. Jack cheese works great at... Members of the Pepper Jack Society over here. So we get the cheese in, get a little cheddar in. Again. I'm gonna save just a little, forget it, everybody. Like we're watching our diet today. Okay, stir this up into here. Just kind of get it coated with that. Let me get a little salt and pepper down on it. There we go. There we go. Okay, now reach over. Hot, hot, yeah. Let that drain out a second. Try not to drop it. Now, I like to use penne in mine. I'm not a big, I like to use the elbow macaroni when I'm making mac salad. But this right here, this has got some real nice texture to it. So the penne is my way to go. Rigate, with the edges on it, so it holds some sauce. Okay, so we mix that around. Now, man, I've got every utensil I own out. Let's see here, clear a landing spot, somebody. Down into the dish. Now, this is already cooked. Oh, I know. I'm crying inside. Good call. Little panko on top. There we go. We're gonna hit a little bit of parsley on top of that for some great color. What do you think with that bacon? You think I should do time with that? Absolutely. A little bit of bacon. There we are, and I got some olive oil here. Now what's gonna happen, I'm gonna pop this in the oven at about 350 for about 20 minutes and let that brown up nice. But believe it or not, I got another one. And one of the things I like about Off the Hook is you all get to eat some of it. Stick around, you're gonna love this. Chow time, chow time.
We'll cut it in fourths. Now, if you don't even have time to do the dough, what you can do is get some frozen puff pastry and defrost it in the refrigerator and use that instead. It's light, it's wonderful, and it's really easy. So I'm just gonna roll each one of these out into a roll, maybe about an 8-inch round. Flour everything, including yourself. Let me move this over a little bit. When you're rolling out dough to make a round, you want to keep turning it. Roll it from the center out to the edge. This is nice dough. You just want to keep it moving, make sure it never sticks to the board. You can roll it on wood, but if you have stone, it's even better. Right on the counter. Okay, now the secret to the dough sticking to the dish is just do a little bit of an egg wash that you're going to use on the top anyway, around the edge. It makes it a little wet. So just put the dough on top. This is obviously a little too big. And you just want to trim the dough so that it's about 1/2 inch bigger than the bowl. Doesn't have to be perfect. Nice country, homey, rough edge is nice. Just like that. Okay, and then just stick it to the edge of the bowl. And it'll stick because of the egg wash that you put on it. Now just egg wash the top. So the dough puffs up and it's nicely browned. It's gonna be wonderful. So when these bake, the steam and the chicken pot pie filling will puff up the dough and it's gonna turn out gorgeous. And then I like to season the top with flaked sea salt so you see it. It's just wonderful. Flaked sea salt. Want to have lots of flavor. Cracked pepper. Okay, that one's done. And I'm gonna bake them for an hour at 375, and they're gonna be puffed and succulent chicken pot pies. I think we're all gonna have a good time.
So for the quicker beef pho, I'm using a thin sliced steak cut, which is usually available at the Asian markets. If you can't get it thin like this, don't worry. Take a nice steak cut, freeze it for about 40 minutes until it's almost frozen, slice it with a nice sharp knife, and you're good to go. These are the rice stick noodles for pho. Make sure to buy extra in case you mess up your first batch. Also, when I was a kid, stocking these shelves, they were my favorite things to stock, not like those 50-pound rice bags. So the last thing we're gonna need for pho is fish sauce. It might sound a little weird if you're not used to using it, but it's such an important ingredient to Vietnamese and Thai cuisine. Make sure you're getting the one that's amber in color and nice and clear. So we're back from the market. Let's start the prep for the quicker beef pho. I'm gonna start with vegetables and then move on to making my stock. So I'm gonna need onions kind of two ways. I'm gonna take the top, the bottom, and then I like to peel the onion while it's in half like this. I developed this pho dish because everybody likes to eat pho, but no one wants to make the 2-day broth. This is a really nice kind of hybrid version where you get the aromatics from all your spices, but you're not gonna sit there and roast bones and literally wait 2 days. This pho is really the perfect elixir. You know, when the kids are kind of in from school, they're sick, the weather's really cold, there's nothing more comforting or warming than having a nice bowl of noodles and pho broth. I'm cutting the half of the onion paper thin for the top of the pho broth. The idea is that super hot broth is poured over the noodles with the onions on it, and these onions kind of melt in but still keep some texture. So the other half of the onion I'm gonna use for stock, so I'm just gonna rough chop it into large pieces. These onions are making me cry. I'm starting to think about my kids when they're sick. This is so sad. As you can see with the ginger, I've just left the skins on and I'm slicing them into thin pieces to get a lot of surface area for the stock. With the scallions, I'm just slicing them into thin slices with a little bit of a bias for garnish. I'm cutting a lot of garnishes, but what's cool about pho is it's kind of like a choose your own adventure dish. You leave all the garnishes out, and whoever is coming to eat the pho kind of builds their own pho the way they like it. These are red serranos. They're kind of the perfect chili because they're not too hot. I just cut a ton of these and leave them on the plates, and whoever likes heat can go for it. And the last ingredient is gonna be lime. I'm just cutting the wedges off the side, kind of leaving the middle seed pod alone. And you leave these out for whoever wants a nice shot of lime to make the pho a little sour. Come in, come really, really tight. The first spice is star anise. It looks like a little star. It smells like Christmas if you think about it. All these 3 spices you buy during the holidays for like cider and you never use them again, so here's the perfect place to use them. So star anise is there. Cloves. Cloves look like little kind of reedy sticks with a little spice ball right on top. And then cinnamon. I know you've got a ton of this laying around from the holidays. So what I'm gonna do is make a really cool satchel. So check this out. In a little plate, I've got some cheesecloth. In the middle of the cheesecloth, I'm gonna lay all the spices in. And they're really overwhelming, and that's why I'm making a satchel, because I can actually put it in the stock, and once it's flavored, if I could pull it out. If I just dumped a ton of spices in the stock, it could overwhelm and taste like Christmas beef stock, which is not delicious, although beef pho is delicious. I'm just wrapping it up into a nice, clean little packet. So I like using butcher twine here because I want to be able to tie this off and be able to pull it in and out of the stock. These are really delicious, but they can go a long way if you leave them in. So let's build the pho broth. First thing we're gonna start with is beef base. I know, controversial, some of you are gonna give me a hard time, but I need you to trust me. Trust me on this. I'll get you to delicious pho. This is where you're gonna save 2 days of cooking right here. Beef base is exactly as its name implies. It gives you that nice beef flavored foundation. A really quick note on fish sauce. Such a fundamental ingredient in Vietnamese food. Now, you know the bottle that's been sitting in your fridge for about a year? It's time to get rid of it because it's probably gone opaque and totally dark like soy sauce. Really fresh fish sauce should be amber and totally translucent in color, just like this. A little more salt, because fish sauce is definitely on that seafood side. I want to go straight salt to give a clean saltiness to kind of boost up that beef flavor. We want to balance those flavors with a little bit of sugar. And now the aromatics, and the aromatics are ginger and onion. I'm gonna let this broth come to a simmer for about 40 minutes and let the onions and garlic marry right into the broth. The last step to finish this broth is adding all the spices from the sachet. Be mindful to not oversteep these. When these are done, you're gonna pull it right out and then you're ready to serve the pho. You're gonna wanna simmer the spices for about 30 to 45 minutes until you just taste all these kind of amazing aromatics. So it's been about 30 minutes. I just wanna taste this before I pull the sachet out. I distinctly taste all the spices, but they're not overpowering. So it's time for the sachet to go away. So my broth is finished, all the garnish is ready. Let me show you how to build this bowl. We're starting with some rice stick noodles that have been soaked and soft. You can also use fresh rice stick noodles here. I'm gonna bundle them into the basket and just give them a really quick dip to cook them. You know, if you don't have one of these noodle baskets at home, a regular colander or sieve is gonna be fine. So just a few seconds in the hot water, drain them well, and then put right into the bowl. So noodles are in. This is the choose your own adventure part. And don't be scared to just do it any way you like it. There is no wrong way. My favorite pho combo is fully loaded, meaning every single garnish plus a ton of sriracha and a ton of hoisin. And if you're gonna do the rare thin beef, make sure to put it on top because it looks really cool there. And don't worry, this is so thin that when that hot broth hits it, it's gonna cook it right away. You wanna make sure that your broth is ripping hot because you want it to cook the meat and then really kind of marry all those flavors together. One of my favorite dishes of all time right here. Feel free to do a little more garnish on the top. I like some scallions, some chilies, a little bean sprouts, and you are good to go. So hoisin and sriracha, it's a total choice situation. Some people like to shoot it in and mix it into the soup, or some people like to dip. I'm more of a dipper than putting the hoisin and sriracha inside. I want to pull some of the noodles and build a little nest of noodles into the middle of the spoon. Add your favorite garnishes. Make sure I've got a little onion, I've got some cilantro, all those really fun goodies in there. Then I take the beef and I do a little dipper and make sure it's touching both sauces. Into the spoon, gather some soup. There's really nothing more kind kind of complex yet comforting than a great pho broth. You've got all the flavors from the spices, you've got all these fresh herbs, and then the core of it is this delicious tender beef and the beef broth. This really is an amazing dish.
We're having our big ranchers dinner tonight. It's when all our friends from neighboring ranchers come over. They bring all their kids, and we just hang out and have a night of food, fun, and fellowship. We have steak and potatoes every year. I decided to whip together some twice-baked potatoes. I've baked several, and I mean several, potatoes in the oven. But before I put them in the oven, I rubbed the skins with canola oil, and that just helps them hold together a little better and makes them a little prettier at the end. Then I halved them, let them cool just for a few minutes, and I'm scooping out the shells. I leave a little bit of a border just to give them some support. But I'm gonna have this huge bowl of potato, and that's where all the good stuff's gonna go. One of the things I love adding to my twice-baked potatoes is thick-cut bacon. So all this bacon is going to distribute nicely. It won't be excessive, I promise. Well, it won't be too excessive anyway. I'm adding 6 sticks of butter to these potatoes. Now, I did a little math, and I baked 24 potatoes. That translates to 48 potato halves, and I'm adding 48 tablespoons of butter to the potatoes. So each potato half will only wind up with 1 tablespoon of butter. So if you think of it that way, it won't seem so overwhelming. And I'm gonna put the bacon on top of it to hide the evidence. All right, 6 total cups of shredded cheese. I'm gonna save 3 cups for the finished potatoes, and I'll add 3 cups now. I'm gonna add 1.5 cups of milk. And this will just make the potatoes nice and moist and soft. And then, shield your eyes again, sour cream. Fortunately, I'm not easily shocked when it comes to ingredients like this. Chopped green onions adds a nice sharpness. Little more salt and pepper, and then just a sprinkling of seasoned salt. I think I probably needed a bigger bowl. I'm just gonna fold in the bulk of the ingredients. All right, I've got the shells ready to go. They really held their shape nicely. And then I just scoop the filling into each shell. You can make them way in advance. You can make them early in the day, stick them in the fridge, and then when the guests arrive, just pop them in the oven. I've made them the day before too, and it saves a lot of time on party day. Okay, I've got the rest of this shredded cheese. And before I put these in the fridge, I'm just gonna sprinkle the tops. I'm gonna stick the potatoes in the oven, get them nice and warm.
Two tablespoons of freshly minced parsley. I need about 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. I think it's unusual in meatballs, but I think it gives it lots of flavor. One egg. All these ingredients are designed to either flavor it or hold it together. So I'm just going to beat it a little bit. Pour it on top. Now some seasoning. 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. 2 teaspoons of salt. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And here's the surprising part, warm water. 3/4 cup. I actually learned this trick from Rao's, that famous Italian restaurant in New York. And it keeps the meatballs so moist you wouldn't believe it. Okay, clean hands, cook's best tool. And you want to do this really lightly. You don't want to sort of compact it. You want to fluff it up and still mix them together. Oh, this smells so good. So this is going to make about 16 really good-sized meatballs, which is perfect for my guests. So I've got 1/4 inch of oil. It's half olive oil and half vegetable oil. I'm just going to saute these and just keep turning them so they brown evenly on all sides. I'm doing them in 2 batches, so I don't want to overcrowd them so they brown nicely. So the second batch of meatballs are done. I'll just cook them 10 minutes until they're nice and browned, and then I'm gonna finish cooking them in tomato sauce. Okay, I'm just gonna pour off all the oil that I used for cooking the meatballs. So I'm gonna use the same pan. It's got all that great flavor from the meatballs. A little bit of fresh olive oil. 1 cup of onions. It's 1 or 2 onions, depending on how big they are. And they're going to cook for 10 minutes until they're really tender and flavorful. And now I need some wine for the sauce. Okay, 1½ teaspoons of garlic. I do the garlic at the end because it burns really quickly. You can smell the garlic immediately. It's wonderful. Okay, have a couple of red wine, deglaze the pan. Get all those really crusty bits from the meatballs. It really flavors the sauce. And cleans the pan too. 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Okay, that smells great. About a tablespoon of parsley. 1½ teaspoons of salt. 1½ teaspoons of pepper. I'm just gonna cook that together for a minute. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is take the meatballs and just put them right back into the sauce, and they're going to cook for about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, just put them all in. Yikes. Tomato sauce and meatballs. Oh. Big bunch of basil, right in the middle. Big spoons.